Sort of Coming Chapter 970. They are sitting on the railing of the arch bridge, just as they did in the past. Chen Pingan suddenly said, I once heard an incredible conjecture that the world we live in has actually cycled countless times, and it is a repetition without any changes. All living beings and dead things are in one calamity, the heaven and the earth are born, the heaven and the earth are destroyed, and then they start again, the cycle repeats. It is not bad at all. It is just that there are different opinions about the number of years of this calamity, and some say it is 10,000 years, there are also 100,000 years, or even longer. Therefore, later generations will have the saying that there is no escape. The sages have already said that it is impossible to break. Is that really the case? She listened quietly to Chen Pingan's words, and when the latter asked, she smiled and said, the idea is good, new, and interesting, but it's far off the topic, and it's ridiculously wrong. Chen Pingan breathed a sigh of relief, and said softly, it's not that good. Otherwise, a person's words and deeds, the number of paths in the whole life, as large as the vast expanse of stars outside the sky, as small as the grass and trees on the earth, and even the path of each snowflake falling to the ground, are definite numbers. Then the so-called present life counts what happened. She smiled and asked, is it because of the speculation derived from the saying that God is infallible and life is in heaven? Chen Pingan stood up, walked on the railing, slowly fisted, and smiled. I don't know whether it is good or bad. After stopping, Chen Pingan exhausted his eyes, but could not see any stars outside the sky. Only the golden long bridge at the foot is in the middle of the sea of clouds. She seemed to see the regret in Chen Pingan's heart. She waved her snow-white sleeves. In an instant, in Chen Pingan's vision, bright stars were arranged like chess pieces, and the scenery was magnificent. Many densely clustered stars, the rays of light converge into a gorgeous river, dragging like sword light. There are also many stars gathering, such as magnificent palaces. Chen Pingan was startled for a moment, and curiously asked, the world martial arts are circulating. It seems that the three religions don't care about it. It's because it's not easy to manage, and it's just a thankless or uncontrollable thing. Has reached a certain agreement, just let it go and watch the changes. She asked back, the master has been to some weird mountain, right? Chen Pingan understood instantly, and wondered, is this mountain not on the ground? It's outside the sky. There are countless suns and moons outside the sky, and everyone has a share of the blessings of the sky, but certain stars with special meanings are all isolated cases. Some of the hanging mansions of the godlike spirits, but some have been preserved, because at the time Daozu and Mr. Sanshan Joho, who created the talisman together, had a meticulous deduction. What needs to be left is a bit particular. Between the words, she smiled and stretched out a finger, pointing to a place in the emptiness. Following her guidance, Chen Pingan seemed to be temporarily granted some kind of a Tianyantong, similar to the inexhaustible Buddhism, so that he saw a star that was actually no stranger at first glance. In the human field of vision, it is the Venus among the 5 elements. At dawn, only this star is unique, as if one star retreats from the stars, so it is also known as Changgung or Qiming. According to the Book of Heaven, the ancient star Changgung, once the trajectory deviates, it will change the sky, which means that the world will be armed. The Qintian supervisors of the secular dynasties will arrange special, celestial masters, who are proficient in celestial phenomena, who are responsible for staring at the position and castration of this ancient star in different solar terms and time. The first ancestor of this poor military strategist, to a large extent, he also blazed a path to the heavens for the world of martial arts, but he was only halfway there and failed to truly attract the heavens and the earth. If he succeeds, his existence itself is quite its on the third soaring platform. This merit is recognized in the world, and there is the 10,000-year covenant between the patriarch of the 3 teachings and him, but it is secret and no record. Now the 10,000-year time limit is approaching, and the world is big and small. The Qin Tian supervisor is already busy. She spoke a little jokingly, patted the railing with both hands, and slowly said, "So going back to the source, in a strict sense, the difference between martial arts and magic is not clear, but the same source and different streams, which seems to be a well. Water does not offend the relationship between rivers and waters. In the final analysis, it is still a source of origin. This is why the master was a pure martial artist, but was able to practice talisman. It is because Ko Ming saw this, and then passed by the head of Bai Yujing. Improvement, suitable for martial arts practice, is like taking a trick to walk into a big house from the side door. That's why a mountain like Tongyi's Hupashin, a pure martial arts, can also practice the magic of the immortal family. The reason why it cannot be promoted is because the threshold is a bit higher, and the requirements for qualifications are higher. The so-called great monks are often obsessed with proving the path for immortality and must have no distractions. The higher the position, the more foreign objects need to be cut off. Naturally, there is no need to practice martial arts. Chicken ribs. But in fact, the road of martial arts at the feet of a pure Wufu is the road that has the most hope of becoming a in the flesh and immortality of the true spirit. It is a little harder to walk. It needs to be among the 11th realms within 200 to 300 years. For people nowadays, they have a little aptitude for cultivation. Since they can take shortcuts and go smoothly, why bother to take risks and take a dead-end path? Lu Qin can count on the one who can see through this. So if I'm not wrong, I guessed it. If this is the case, this Master Lu, in addition to the real white bone, also hides a clone, and is always secretly practicing martial arts. He went to run to a peak to see the hard work. In fact, it is not as simple as the surface. Maybe Bai Yujing is inside the 12th floor of the 5th city. Jiang Zhaomo's martial arts attainments in Ziki Tower are not as good as Lu Qin, far inferior. Chen Pingan squinted and said with a smile, "So Lu Qin also learns martial arts." "That's right." On the wine table in the lobby of the city, Chen Pingan seemed to have just wandered out of the sky, which did not hinder the normal conversation between him and Qin Bugui and his party. Chen Pingan seemed to ask casually, "Senior Qin is in the same vein as his senior brother Shishan Jian. Do you know a lot about me?" Qin Busuk shook his head and said, "Not much, and not too much." For example, during his trip to Luzhou in the north, Lord Chen once encountered a team of horsemen and pawns from the North Yan Kingdom, and there were also several assassins from the Lushan Mountain who met on a narrow road. The brave wins. Chen Pingan nodded and did not deny the incident. That was Chen Pingan's first real mass murder. Even if it was the first shot when he was a teenager, it was fighting side by side with Song Yushao, facing an elite cavalry of the combing water country. When Chen Pingan shot on the battlefield, he would deliberately avoid the ordinary cavalry. Mr. Zheng smiled and said, "A leaf falls and you know autumn." Cui Dongshan grinned and said, "No need, can't it? The small area of Aquarius Island has small benefits. A little bit of trouble will not hide the traces of dragons and snakes." Qin Busu nodded and said, "What sect Master Cui said is the truth." Senior brother Lu Taozi's abbot Shishan Jianyan's lineage really wanted to take root in Aquarius in the early years, but later it didn't conform to Zayuha's concept of governing the country, and the group was sent out by gift, saying that it was a gift, but it was actually expelled from the country. It's just that Cui Yang still saved the face for senior brother Lu. He neither publicized the matter nor used the monks of the Dali court. From beginning to end, he never hurt anyone. Cui Dongshan gave a thumbs up and said in admiration, "Sister Qin is quick to talk, you friend, Dongshan is settled." Qin Bugui smiled and asked, "Why is Qin Shanju not willing to serve as the national teacher of Dali?" As soon as the words came out, even Concise pricked up his ears, waiting for the answer from Qin Pingan. Not only to give charcoal in the snow to the Dai dynasty, but also to icing on the cake for yourself and Luopishan, why not do it? Whether it is from his teacher, deeds, fame, strength, mountain incense, in all aspects, Chen Ping'an is the most suitable candidate, and there is no one. Chen Ping'an took a sip of wine, smiled, and said nothing. Could it be that Lu Taoji, Shishan Jianin, and the 3 veins of the scourge, are going down the mountain like the Luoyang Myuk, intending to surface? Could it be that he had a secret agreement with some patriarchs of the 100 schools and planned to participate in the grand event together, trying to walk out of the house in the next Sanjiao Patriarch's walk, carrying a bucket to catch water to the sky? Chen Ping'an didn't say a word, and the lobby fell into a slightly embarrassing atmosphere of silence. Cui Dongshan broke the silence. If I don't speak, I won't be cold for half an hour. Seeing that Chen Ping'an was reluctant to say more about this matter, Qin didn't think he had asked. Songji asked, Sect Master Cui seems to be proficient in all kinds of secret history. His own line of Luoyang Myuk is an incompetent savage who has no roots outside the mountain, but this young-looking young lord, even the real name of Pao Zhai's ancestor, can be explained in one word. And looking at the posture, no matter what they are talking about, this person can speak. There are so many strange people and strangers in Zhou, countless stories about the mountains and the deeds of the immortal family, especially some secrets that have never been recorded. It can only be spread word of mouth on a small scale. Outsiders wanting to learn the inside story is like finding a needle in a haystack, but this person seems to be proficient in Shanghai's gossip, and can always do it easily. Everyone, if you want to do this, you must have age, realm, and connections. Cui Dongshan put his palms against the wine bowl, gently rotated it, and said with a smile, Pick up wheat ears in the field, and select bean sprouts in the ditch of the pit. It is not worthy of a job. Cui Dongshan tentatively said, Brother Songji, since you have reached the boundary of Xianda Mountain, there is no reason to pass the door. After drinking tonight, you can go to Xianda Mountain to rest for a while, and I will take it personally. Let you take a trip to the Rin River to see if there is a suitable site, and you can open up a Xianjia ferry with the largest scale in Tonggishao. I will put the cruel words here in front of my husband today, as long as Brother Songji has a good eye, even if I give up my face and save my life, I will also seek a great cause for the future for Brother Songji. The dull man said in a dull voice, Sect Master Cui, just call my name, Pang Chao, the face is huge, the transcendence is super. It was indeed the other party taking a bite of a pine resin brother, shouting that Pang Chao got goosebumps all over his body. Cui Dongshan said solemnly, that can't work. It's too unfamiliar to call each other fellow Taoists. If Brother Pang doesn't call me Brother Dongshan, he just looks down on me, and Brother Pang looks down on me. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I made up my mind to climb up Brother Pang. Up. He and Pang Chao were brothers, and worshipped a hand, then Zhang Ji would have to call Uncle Cui when he saw him later. That's a who is unprofitable and can't afford to pull the hair early, and now has this level of relatives, uncles and nephews meet. Zhang Ji, are you embarrassed to be in business? Pang Chao was not good at words, and when he encountered Cui Dongshan's oil, he didn't know how to deal with it. He had to drink silently without talking. Of course, he felt that he had declined the other party, but the other party had taken it as Pang Chao acquiesced. On a windy and snowy night, we met by chance, the wine had been drunk, and the matter was over. Mr. Zhang wants to travel north alone, lonely and wild, and he is used to being home from all corners of the world. As for the concise magic knife, Mingquan, stolen from Yao Ling's hand, it will be handed over by Han Guanghu for the Emperor Yao of Dequan. As to how to deal with this magical soldier that Dequan used to suppress the national destiny, it is the matter of the female Emperor Yao Jinji. Han Guanghu returned to Mirage City with Jian Ming. He was just at the wine table. The old man had already made a decision. He promised Mr. Zhang through secret words that he would go to the temple of the Daquan dynasty to find a position and help Yao Jinji. At least 30 years. As a result, the lack of a Daquan dynasty with the strength of a mountain in these years is tantamount to an additional martial artist out of thin air. What's more, Han Guanghu is not at the peak of martial arts, but the shadow of the famous Tree of Man, a martial artist who used to punch Jinjia for 100 years is a huge deterrent to Tonggishao today, and it is a veritable New Year's luck for Daquan Yao family. Without Cui Dongshan's help to lead the way, Qin Buyu and Pang Chao set off for Yufeng to go to Mishua Peak, and then stayed in Qingping Jianzong for a while, and then followed Cui Dongshan on the Rhone River in the middle of Tonggishao. Song Yushao went south with Han Guanghu, who had met and fell in love. He planned to see the prestigious Mirage City, and then waited for the Fengyuan ferry at Taiedu, and then followed the transcontinental ferry, first south, to drive the mountain crossing to Tonggishao, and then all the way north across the sea to Aquarius Island. The old man will disembark in the old Dragon City, walk through the semi-continental land, and slowly return to the water country. Chen Pingan wanted to send Song Yushao to the gate of the city. The old man waved his hand to indicate that he would not use it, so Chen Pingan just sent it to the street in front of the house. Han Guanghu stopped and said, "Next time Grandmaster Qin comes to Mirage City, he will make up for the discussion that he owes today." Chen Pingan smiled and said, "Jiang Jun Wenquan, juniors are good at it." Han Guanghu choked for a while, and the young people just didn't listen to them. It is still the conciseness of holding a knife under the arm, winking and joking. Chen Pingan, this time I will go to Daquan with Han Lauer, and I will definitely see someone. Do you have anything to ask me to help? Chen Pingan raised his face sternly and put on the elder's shelf, "Your boy's wine tastes a little bit, so remember to drink more and talk less on the wine table in the future." Concise and deflated. Mr. Singh smiled and reminded the apprentice, "You are too late to speak, remember." Song Yushao and his party walked away slowly on the snow-filled road. Jianming suddenly turned around, walked backwards, looked at Mr. Zhang who was wearing a blue cotton robe, and shouted, "Master, take care." Mr. Zhang smiled and nodded, each cherish each other. Cui Dongshan squatted on the steps and pinched a snowball. Mr. Zhang and Chen Pingan stood side by side and said, "Mr. Qin, we met for the first time in the past. It was so offending. I hope the adults will not remember the villain." The woman in white appeared before the city and called Chen Pingan as her master. She then turned around the time at will. Afterwards, even the two ghosts Qin Buyu and Pang Chao were unaware of the incident. Mr. Zhang traveled the world for thousands of years. I have seen a lot of big winds and waves, but this is the first time Mr. Zhang has encountered it. It is an eye-opener. As for people under the eaves, saying a few words with their heads down is not wrong. Chen Pingan clasped his hands and clasped his fists. Mr. Zhang replied, he never complained when he met Ping Shui, and he can drink at the same table when the rivers and lakes meet again, and he can talk and laugh at the same table, which is a good destiny. Besides, he is concise and has a good temperament. Mr. Zhang smiled knowingly, holding a fist in return. Chen Pingan said, "Mr. Zhang, I will not be far away. I will go to Luopishan as a guest when I have time. I will stay more in my hometown in the future. Qingping Jianzong is taken care of by Cui Dongshan, so I can rest assured. Besides, he is the sect master, and I am not considered as the treasurer." Mr. Zhang smiled and said, "There is no need to send it off. You will parade alone on a windy and snowy road. It has no charm." Cui Dongshan held the snowball in both hands, his eyes murmured and said, "Why do you have to sprinkle another heavy snow on the heart of the students, and chill the hearts of the soldiers?" Mr. Zhang smiled and said, "The articles on the road are full of articles. Naturally, it is not easy to do. But as long as a person is famous all over the world, he will often discredit his peers. There are very few exceptions. Chen Pingan said, all good people do not ask for knowledge. Don't do evil, don't be afraid of people know. Mr. Zhang nodded and said, Mr. Chen is already on the road to practice. Chen Pingan turned his head, clasped his fists and smiled, that junior will encourage with Mr. Zhang. Mr. Zhang's palm was against the hilt of the scabbard. As a result of his identity, he had to hide and tuck, which made Mr. Chen laugh. Chen Pingan shook his head and said, there are not only swordsmen in the arena, but the swordsmen must be from the rivers and lakes. Mr. Zhang smiled and said, this is the number one toast. After parting from the Mo family who used to be a wood mover, Chen Pingan was taken by Cui Dongshan to a room in the house. He said that this money monkey is a bit interesting, and he must meet him. There was a small brazier in the house. The thin man was rubbing his hands to keep warm. He was yawning and a little sleepy. Qian Hor heard a loud knock on the door, and quickly got up and ran to open the door, and found that besides the funny-spoken Master Cui Xian, there was also the green-shirt guest who almost had a fight with others at the door. While Qian Hor was working on the wording, the other party smiled sincerely, and he took the initiative to say, excuse me. Qian Hor was a little bit stunned to hear, and he didn't look like Master Cui Xian. Cui Dongshan coughed, Qian Hor recovered, and hurriedly gave way, bowed his head and said, please come in, don't disturb, how can you disturb? The house is not big, but there are a lot of chairs. They are all collected by money monkeys who like to make wood. Old objects and excellent carpentry. Cui Dongshan carried a chair in one hand and hooked one with his feet. The three of them sat around the brazier. Sir, although Qian Hor has never read a book, he is very easy to learn. He is a typical self-taught talent. He can still tell me the truth. This is not because he was in this room not long ago and he told me that one day if you don't read, Pepsi will be wasteful. Chen Pingan smiled and nodded, very insightful. Qian Hor was stunned, and said timidly, I don't seem to have said it. Cui Dongshan categorically said, you seem to have said it. Qian Hor glanced at Cui Dongshan with a serious face, and said with a stern expression, Mr. Cui said that I said it, then I said it. Chen Pingan can't help but is quite suitable to go to Xiande Mountain, and he cooks good dishes. Without seeing Qian Hor, Cui Dongshan waved his hand and grabbed the charcoal drawing booklet on the table and handed it to her husband. Chen Pingan smiled and looked at Qian Hor, and the man hurriedly said, just look and see, things with ghosts and symbols will laugh and be generous, for fear that it will stain the eyes of the immortal master. Cui Dongshan glared, if you haven't studied before, just talk less literally. This is not to show off your feet and show off your knowledge. This is called Taishao generous, it is Taishao generous. Qian Hor was skeptical. He had seen this idiom in the book, and he had even made a special trip with Xiaofang girl for advice. Chen Pingan took the booklet and said, Brother Qian, don't listen to Dongshan's nonsense. After chatting, Chen Pingan learned that Qian Hor's real name is Qian Jun, and there is also a kiln in his hometown. He is half of his colleagues, so there will be some chatting. Chen Pingan knew Cui Dongshan's intentions, so he pushed the boat along the river and invited Qian Jun to see Xiande Mountain. If he felt the smell of the mountain was similar, he would simply settle down and find a mountain identity on Xiande Mountain. If I want to move my nest in the future, I have a foundation, so I don't have to worry about finding the temple even if I carry the pig's head. After all, the hero can only hear half of the words. Qian Hor still declined the other party's kindness. It is inevitable that this three-level martial arts master Cui who behaved strangely and whispered in his heart, coupled with the kind words and deeds of Mr. Qin, their hills are so lacking in people. Hungry and not choosing what to eat, even this kind of stuff like myself is eye-catching. Seeing that the man in the green shirt was rejected without getting angry, Qian Hou heaved a sigh of relief. He has been wandering around for so many years, and his skill in martial arts and boxing is sloppy, but he thinks he has some skill in his face. The reason why he doesn't know how to promote is not that Qian Hou doesn't want to be rich, but that he has a long memory and knows the truth of the depths of the rivers and lakes. Only a small broken bowl. In the final analysis, Qian Jun has become accustomed to life, and he doesn't believe his life is good anymore. Ask him Qian Jun to be Wang Manmang of the gods on the mountain, or Hong Chou, a grand master who is treated with courtesy everywhere. I guess he has just started bargaining with each other a long time ago. Give him a few offerings every year. There are some in the mountains. Unprepared private home. Chen Pingan left the house with Cui Dongshan. After crossing the threshold, Cui Dongshan turned his head and gave a thumbs up to the thin man beside him. Qian Hou, let my husband invite the heroes who went up the mountain on their own initiative. Count, you can still refuse if you are invited, and it is even rarer. It's amazing. After leaving the house, Chen Pingan walked on the street. The wind and snow filled the streets, and the night was heavy, but there was no reason to think of a sentence that was exactly the opposite of the scene at this time. In the big kiln of heaven and earth, young charcoal is used for cooking, and all things are melted, which is inevitable. The earliest words were heard by Lu Xianyang from the old man Yao, the master at the mouth of the kiln. Chen Pingan was swinging out on Chen Pingan's side. Chen Pingan followed the old man Yao to search for porcelain clay, going back and forth in the mountains and out of the mountains. Maybe they couldn't say three things. Talk. Then Chen Pingan was on the way to Luzhou in Beiju, and Sui Jingqing, who had been with an oil bottle next to him, had also felt this. Chen Pingan was walking slowly in the snow tonight, turning his head and looking. Cui Dongshan turned his head and asked in doubt, "Sir, is there something weird?" Chen Pingan smiled and said, "It's nothing." With a trembling wrist, Chen Pingan slipped a Chao Zi dagger from his sleeve, and the short knife Muxia, that has not yet figured out the roots of the knife. They were all trophies that Sui Jingqing helped to find in the past. Even Lu Jinglong saw two handles. Dagger, can't help feeling that it's so lucky. Lu Jinglong recognized this Chao Zi dagger, which was recorded in official history, and the other one was named Cut Deer by Chen Pingan. He always felt that it was better than the old name Muxia engraved on the blade. I have to admit that naming depends on talent. Chen Pingan twisted his wrist and played a series of sharp knives all around the snowflakes. Cui Dongshan couldn't bear to break Mr. S' peaceful state of mind, but he couldn't hold it back anymore, so he had to carefully ask, "Since the big fish has bitten the bait, when will Mr. pick up the rod?" Chen Pingan stopped the dagger and put it back in his sleeve. He said in a huff, "If you know what you ask, pretend to be stupid." Whoever listened to the root of the wall before is the same virtue as Lu Xianyang. No wonder he is commensurate with brothers, and he is very enthusiastic. Cui Dongshan agreed, Mr. S' mind is like a sea, and the water is deep and silent. He used to be a dumb riddle with Senior Song. Without hearing Mr. S' exact answer in person, the students dare not rest assured. Chen Pingan said, "This plan was not discussed with you in advance. I need to apologize to you and promise not to be an example." Cui Dongshan became more aggrieved. Students are not guests. If you say these kind words again, the students will really feel sad. Stale Ping He smiled. Cui Dongshan immediately straightened his waist and said loudly, "Students are not wronged." Chen Pingan lowered his head and rubbed his hands, and gently exhaled a breath of mist. Yang Ji, a throne demon, of course, can be regarded as a big fish who has cast its own net. If it weren't for Senior Song's remarks, as long as Yang Ji dare to come to Tongyi's house, then don't leave. I, plus Xiao Mo, Cui Dongshan, and me you, are enough. Outside the battlefield, to lure them into profit, invite the king to enter the urn, and then set up a net to besiege. Of course, this is against the morals of the world, so Chen Pingan would have the conversation with the Song elders. Speaking of realm status, the Confucian temple is forbidden by the volcanoes of Lao Junlu, and Lu Cha, who is imprisoned in a mysterious landscape in Gonglan, is roughly the same. Both are one of the 14 old throne big monsters, but Lu Cha the seat is higher. Of course, if Lu Cha hadn't been blocked by Qin Chunan and returned to his hometown as a swordsman in the 14th realm, Lu Cha would now be the head of Kendo in the wild. And the reason why Yang Ji was so missed by Chen Pingan was not only because of the opponent's heavy-handed killings on the battlefield. The method was fierce. After crossing the Great Wall of Sword Qi and reaching the Howran world, Yang Ji also contributed a lot, which can really make Qin Chen the one who started the killing in peace, or Yang Ji once smashed and killed a sword fairy on the battlefield of the Great Wall of Sword Qi in full view. Cui Dongshan was a little bit shattered. It seemed that he had made up his mind. He had to ask why he had to. He said, "Temporarily stop and change your mind. Isn't it a waste of all previous efforts? In my heart, will it be unhappy for a long time?" Chen Pingan was silent. The prisoners of Lu Cha and Yang Ji did not kill, both of which were Middle-earth Confucian temples, which, to be precise, meant ritual saints. Earlier in the Confucian temple, there was no objection, but the saints of rituals were so decided, and they stopped arguing about this matter. Cui Dongshan sighed softly, and kept using his toes to provoke snow on the road. After the husband returned to his hometown, Luopa Mountain established the sect. In addition to watching Xingyang Mountain, there was a lot of noise. After that, he quickly chose a state similar to the closure of the mountain for Luopa Mountain, and then the husband hurriedly chose the site of Tong Tong. Yizhou quickly established the next clan. The former is fair and reasonable. To say the latter, if you want to fill a continent's land shortage, you must own a piece of land, public and private, and of course it's fair enough. But Cui Dongshan had already sensed something wrong. Maybe Zhu Lian on the side of Luopa-shan had also noticed it, but the old cook was a good person and deliberately pretended to be stupid. At that time, Yang Ji had no way to dispatch, and the command was ineffective. After eating and hanging on the Jiazi account, he needed to make up for the work. He left the battlefield temporarily like Huang Luan and returned to the wild hinterland. He was responsible for hunting, intercepting and killing those hiding in the wild. Jinchi Great Wall Sword Repair. Chen Pingan ordered on the spot that Jian Xiu was not allowed to rescue, but a group of Jian Xiu still left the city. And this incident is also the most criticized young hidden official who sits in the Summer Palace. There are still many sword repairs in the colorful world of Feixingcheng. He feels that Chen Pingan is too cold-blooded and utilitarian, even if he deserves it. The last hermit of the Great Sword Qi Great Wall is still not a pure Sword Qi Great Wall sword repair. Of course, it was not because of this kind of criticism that Chen Pingan had a particularly murderous intent on Yang Ji, so he deliberately took the Qingtong to meet Yang Ji, using the guise of business talks to induce her to take the initiative to leave the forbidden area. It's just like the rider's actions of Beiyan country that I encountered on the way to Luzhou in Beiju. Life is always so complicated. Cui Dongshan asked tentatively. The reason why he Xiangting and Yu Qingzhang left Luopa-shan is actually because the husband secretly instructed Yu to accept disciples? Chen Pingan shook his head and finally spoke. At that time, it was just a coincidence that no one could think of such a far away. It was also a coincidence that they followed Yu and didn't have to meet Yang Ji. Otherwise, I don't know how to clean up this mess. Children are children, so there are certain things that adults cannot expect children to understand. There are some truths that can only be realized by children slowly as they grow up. If the dream is to make a snowman, growing up is like eating a cold meal. Once Yang Ji appeared in Tonggishao and participated in the excavation of the central part. Even if Yang Ji used a blinding technique, it would be impossible for the paper to contain the fire for a long time. Sooner or later, the sword fairy Fizi from the Great Wall of Sword Chi will know the inside story. The same as the roots of the wild great demon, Shao Mo is different. Sleeping for thousands of years in the bright moon and bright color, has nothing to do with the Great Wall of Jinchi. In addition, there was an old deaf child in the top 10 swords immortals in the past years, so the local sword repairman of the Great Wall of Sword Chi was relatively open-minded in dealing with this matter. There is also the wild Tao Pavilion next to Li Huai, who has lived in 100,000 mountains for a long time, and coupled with the relationship between the old sword fairy and the old blind man, Tao Ting has no guts to grudge against the Great Wall of Jinchi, and has no guts. But Yangzhe is different. Being detained is one thing. The two sides don't meet each other, and they don't communicate with each other. Once they come to Tonggishao without killing them, it's another thing. The Confucian temple has its own considerations. With Lu Cha and Yang Ji, in the past few years, there have been remnants of the demon clan who have not been able to leave the vast world. Seeing that the search for mountains on all continents is getting more and more powerful, they have taken the initiative to show their identities with the colleges of all continents. For example, last time Chen Pingan was in Gonglan, he had specifically consulted Jing Shengsiping on this matter. He was a side attack, asking those monster monks who were desperate and unwilling to jump over the wall in a hurry, about how many of them were in the middle 5th and upper 5th levels. Chen Pingan was surprised by the number of answers. Of course, Beiju Luzhou is an exception. Many monster monks who dared not show up in Aquarius Island crossed the sea to secretly cross the sea and landed on Beiju Luzhou, wanting to go to the academy to find an amulet, regardless of what happened afterwards. If you lose your mind, save your life first. After all, as long as the monks from all continents search for the mountains, you will really kill the red eye. As a result, there were still many monster monks who did not wait for them to see the academy and were intercepted halfway down the road. In Fuyao and Jinjiazu, this kind of thing also happened from time to time. The Confucian temple and the academies of various continents were also checked, but any clues found, especially whether the academies were really attentive, all have to be questioned. As for Yufu Academy, there is no need to put a question mark. Chen Pingan asked, if it was Brother Chui, what would he do? Senior Brother Chui Yang's knowledge of work has its own cool style. Chui Dongshan said, it's hard to say. That old who does things and leaves no way for others to retreat may be to make the best use of everything. For example, let Yang Ji come to Tonggishao to dig a new big blasphemy, or will Yang stop? Putting it directly on Ao Ping Zhou as the great prince, there is no trouble in my heart, and I will definitely not be as embarrassed as my husband. As for the thoughts of the children, it is not important at all. They are young and do not understand that it is their business. They are older, if you still don't understand, it's still their business. It may also be that the first move is the same as the first move. Waiting until Yang Ji leaves the Middle-earth divine continent is a dead end. What the Confucian temple and the Lixing think and how to do it has nothing to do with Chui Yang. If you want to follow the rules, you can ask the teacher for your crimes, just come. Chen Pingan gave a hum. Chui Dongshan said, leave aside the question, it is death or alive, I will talk about it later. But Mr. Bai Yujing, the head teacher, did not kill the old fairy in Shenshao City, Jian for Qingqingdu on the Great Wall of Qi, not killing the old deaf children, and the Confucian temple rituals not killing Lu Cha, are all a kind of thinking and a thread. Chen Pingan said, I can understand. Chui Dongshan grinned. As a result, he immediately slapped his head, and was reprimanded by the husband, no matter how big or small, I dare to call the old sword fairy by his name. Chen Pingan put his hands away and laughed at himself, we are like a friend of mine, and it is considered that the old Lu is not good at others. If he can, he has to make a potion of regret. First on his side, and then gave Pushen Yunkatang 2 pots of pill, and then I'm afraid I will be asked when Qingjing Mountain opened the furnace for alchemy. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, Miss Han is planning to ask Qinghu Palace for a set of sitting forgotten pills for Han Lauer? Chen Pingan nodded. Master Han's character and martial ethics are obvious to all. Sir, is this a retribution of virtue? Zong Master Han is actually looking for a reason to have a chance to weigh my fists and feet. This old predecessor knows that Pei Qian will never learn boxing from him. By the way, don't interrupt, this time, you will come forward to discuss the matter with the old Lu. Remember, you must spend money to buy the pill, and you can't be rejected by the old Lu to find a way. There are too many favors that you owe, and you don't dare to clear it up in the future. Jing Shan is a guest. Mr. just said that he had just returned to the north by Fengyuan Ferry, so he must pass Qingjingshan Qinghu Palace. The students have to accompany Sister Qin and Brother Pang to travel south to the Xinghe River. I changed my mind temporarily. I plan to return to Luopa Mountain alone. I can't let Xiao Mo wait for a long time. After all, letting him go to sea by Jing alone is still a bit dangerous. Sir, this. Dongshan, when you are a student, you can't always dig at the foot of Mr. S. wall without blinking your eyes. It's too shameful. Sometimes you have to share your worries for your husband. What do you think? Sir, I think you think so. Well, my husband thinks the students think so, that's it. Cui Dongshan asked again, walking back to Xiandu Mountain? Just rush to Xiandu Mountain before dawn. Mr. doesn't seem to be particularly anxious to hurry. When you do things, you must be quick and proper, and relax. Xiao Mo must not persuade by Jing. Mr's strict self-discipline and lenient to others, the students learned again. A green shirt and a white shirt, Mr. Student, out of the city gate, the board Cui Dongshan snowballed, half-person tall, 1 person tall, roof high, hill high. The boy in white pushed the huge snowball with both hands and laughed. The green shirt guest on the side cursed naively, and Chen Pingan quickly rolled a snowball of almost the same size. Sword of Coming Chapter 971. The mountains are covered with heavy snow, the ground is white and the wind is cold, and in the dense snow peaks, the branches are broken like broken jade from time to time. In Xiandu Mountain, in addition to Suzerain Cui Dongshan, the only person who can freely enter and exit Xiaodongshan Taoist Temple is the right guardian of Shangzong Luopa Mountain, Zhou Mili. Even the chief enshrines Miyu and Zhanglu Tsuiwei, and they are the masters of the 2 sword fairy embryos. If they want to enter the dojo, they also need to report for the record. Early this morning, Bai Xian was holding a purple clay pot and still made a pot of wolfberry tea for himself. Although he was pitied by brother Jingqin, he got used to drinking it. Now Bai Xian raised his head and poured it. After taking a big sip of wolfberry tea, he said to the millet grains sitting across the table, Guardian right, I feel bitter, uncle. When talking about drinking tea, I'm an experienced expert, Xiaomi Li immediately said, then drink the wild tea made by the old chef himself, first bitter and then sweet, this is called back sweet. Old Bai Xian Hengqiu sighed, where is it? It's not the same thing. You are still a little bit weak in the right guardian. I will let Brother Jia teach you how to speak. Chai Wu, the girl's film, is all in the Yupu state. Recently, I was so worried about the Uncle Bai, so that Bai Xian was so worried that he had a taste of wine when he drank tea. This baby Chai Wu has to practice hard work and diligence to jump out of the upper 5 realms. Hard work, mediocre aptitude, can only make up for the weaknesses with diligence. Millet scratched his face, stood up, took the golden pole and hiking stick from the table, and said that he was stubborn to find Chai Wu. Now that Chai Wu is relatively free, big white goose slows her practice. Bai Xian waved his hand and said weakly, "Go, remember to bring me a message to Chai Wu. She is now in the Yupu state. Good thing, since everyone is a friend, the gift is forgiven. Hypocritical, I will help her when I look back." Think of a few fairy-like, domineering, and arrogant Taoist names. In the future, she will go down the mountain to practice and choose anyone to use. The millet grains accepted and ran all the way to the house on Chai Wu's side. The millet grains had helped prepare the wine jug and bowl. For Chai Wu, half a caddy of wine a day was a matter of 2 bowls. Chai Wu likes to look at the hops, smell the wine, shake the bowl, squint and smile, then raise his hand bowl, raise his head and drink half of the bowl, wipe his mouth, nod his head, and do it all in one go. Xiaomili always feels that Chai Wu treats drinking more seriously and pays more attention to drinking. Previously, Chai Wu said that she was in the Yupu realm, the 11th realm, and the right guardian was the Dongfu realm and the 6th realm. Then the realms of the 2 people are added together, and then averaged, and then rounded up. It is equivalent to 2 people are 9. Circumstance. Inexplicably, he became the golden core immortal mile, wide and wide. Chai Wu is such a powerful arithmetic. It's a shame not to be a clerk. Nowadays, several sword repairmen of Bai Xian and the others don't get together very often, and it's obvious that they have been in retreat for a long time. Just like this morning, Xiaomili only ran into Bai Xian, and Sun Chun Wang and the others were in retreat. Just like the same long river of time, different people waiting in it, but they have different perceptions and situations, and they are different in speed and severity. Chai Wu whispered to Xiaomili in private, and asked himself if he suddenly became Yupu realm, would others have any ideas? At that time, the millet grains said without hesitation, yes, of course there are. For example, when Bai Xian first heard the news, the whole person was stunned. He kept talking to himself over there, saying how there could be someone more talented than himself. In the end, he finally figured it out. Yeah, Chai Wu is not a sword repairer. It is normal to practice faster. King Sun Chun practiced more diligently, Qing Chaolu practiced boxing more attentively, He Gu and Yu Xiehui both began to scold each other for rubbish. Bai Xian told them to drink with you, the gods of the upper 5 realms, and they had to kneel down next time. Drinking on the ground. Ha, Chai Wu, Bai Xian said jokes, it's not true. He Gu was not convinced at the time, his face flushed. Bai Xian squinted, here, I'll show you how, that's it. Then Bai Xian said that I, a genius, took the lead and knelt on the ground. Why are you 2 mediocre people unconvinced? Yu Xia returned with a cold snort, and He Gu laughed angrily. The airy news from the millet grains to Chai Wu was vivid and vivid. Luoposhan's ears to return to the gods, sure enough, is by no means a vain name. Visit the mountain. Chai Wu, I will come to you next time. In fact, there is not a lot of chatting today. Xiaomili quickly got up to say goodbye, but left another snowflake money on the table. It is the old rule of the right guardian of Luopa Mountain. Chai Wu is accustomed to it. Taking advantage of the gap between the millet grains, lowering his head and shoulders to carry the golden pole, Chai Wu twisted his wrist and shook his sleeve. Snow money, then smash the snow money that belongs to him. Xiaomili raised his head and saw this scene behind, grinned, nodded, and went away to patrol the mountain. Chai Wu picked up the bowl again and shook it gently. The water pattern on the bowl was so beautiful that he couldn't bear to drink the last half of the bowl. As for Bai Xian saying that he would help her with the number, Chai Wu just felt that he wanted to drink more, half a caddy, not enough. Earlier, I heard Xiaomili said that after very careful guessing and deduction, she came up with such a precise result. Because she came here as a guest, every time the door is opened here, some spiritual energy will run away from the world, and it will be scattered accidentally. Going to Mishu a peek outside, so she can't come here often to see them. When she comes, she has to make up some spiritual energy. According to the length of stay, she will leave 1 or 2 or 3 snowflakes of money, otherwise it will be a fake public aid. It doesn't sound good to spread it out. After all, she is on the side of Luopa Mountain, and you must pay attention to the influence on the side of the next sect. But this matter, Xiaomi Li only quietly talked to Chai Wu, and Chai Wu said he would help keep it secret. I remember the first time that Xiaomi Li and Chai Wu had a happy chat, turned his head, frowned, pinched and counted, with a bitter face, 3 snowflake coins from the cotton bag, sniffing his nose, and gently placing them on the table superior. Saving a little money can be difficult. Not long after Zhou Mili left at that time, Sect Master Cui and Miyu both appeared at Chai Wu's table. Chai Wu was curious, but he didn't know how to ask to be considered appropriate, so he didn't speak at all. Cui Dongshan lowered his head, stacked the 3 snowflake money together, lay on the table, and said with a smile, "Every time you open the door of the dojo, the loss of spiritual energy really counts as fairy money, but it is not snowflake money, but Guyu money." Miyu said in a bad mood, "There is a mountain protection array, the spirits here are overflowing, but you can't get out of the Qingping Sword sect boundary." Sect Master Cui, "You are too unjust, even the money for the millet grains. It's the snowflake money that was deceived by the millet grains, otherwise Miyu would have turned his face on the spot with Cui Dongshan, and the fight would be fine, but Miyu inevitably has to sue the hidden officer. Such students really have to control." Cui Dongshan rolled his eyes and said, "I'm not helping the right guardian to save money. Otherwise, the husband will know about this matter. One of the 3 of us counts as one, and no one wants to run." Miyu laughed angrily. "Sect Master Cui, please make it clear that this matter has something to do with me and Chai Wu. I really want to pull people back and look for Bai Xian." Cui Dongshan stretched out his hand, pressed the palm of his hand against the snowflake money on the table, and said with a smile, "Chai Wu, don't lose weight because of small things in the future." Chai Wu nodded. In fact, Sect Master Cui doesn't need to remind this kind of thing. He is not a heartless fool. Zhou Mili is so good, and Chai Wu will only be better to Zhou Mili in the future. After Xiao Mili learned that he was in the Yupu realm, except for the first time to congratulate him, why did he often come here afterwards? Isn't it just worrying that Bai Xian and the others have ideas? Worrying that they are estranged from their friends with King Sun Chen? Cui Dongshan said, "After all, he is a very wise-rooted child, he must have studied in his previous life, and the conversation is effortless." Cui Dongshan stood up, "Okay, let's not talk nonsense, Chai Wu, since you have already reached the sky in 1 step, let's take a few days and read more of the miscellaneous books I threw to you, Sword Book, Dao Ju, Fu Lu's Han Fa, first look at the Fa, then come to practice hard, and continue to work hard. One day you become an immortal, you can call on your friends and go down the mountain to play together." Beautiful. Leaving the dojo with Miyu, Cui Dongshan stood at the entrance of Dongtian and smiled and said, "Chief Mi, looking at the millet grains out of pocket, you feel distressed, but besides don't stop the millet grains, don't even think about finding a crappie from the beginning, help Xiaomili to make up the snowflake money." Miyu wondered, why is this? Cui Dongshan patted Miyu on the shoulder, "Chief Mi, what's the matter? It's more difficult than chatting with a little girl like Chai Wu." Miyu smiled, "Listen carefully, I would like to hear more." After Cui Dongshan closed the door, he watched from a distance the little girl in black who swaggered down the steps of Misiufeng. "Xiaomi Li, I have been secretly guilty for so many years, and I always feel that I have not been able to help others. Do something." Miyu hesitated to speak but stopped. Millet has obviously done a lot, and even Miyu will sincerely feel that this little girl who is the guardian of the right guardian of the Luopa mountain is the one who takes care of people the most, at least one of them. This little girl who patrols the mountain every day and always has melon seeds in her pocket is helping the hermit and Luopa Shan, taking care of the subtle hearts of rice grains. Cui Dongshan shook his head. Of course I know what you want to say, but that's just what we think. What I really care about is what Xiaomili thinks. Miyu was silent for a moment, suddenly smiling brightly, slapped Cui Dongshan's shoulder again with a slap. Sect Master Cui deserves to be the proud student of the Hermit Lord. Miyu, do you want to listen to your family's words behind closed doors? Please say. I want to ask Miyu to prepare for the sword to be expelled from Qingping Jianzhong one day. I don't know why, but I'm both worried and looking forward to it. This means that once Miyu puts all his strength out of the sword, when he is in the fairyland, the sword cuts the fairy. In the future, when Miyu is already in the Ascension Realm, he will cut the Ascension Realm with a sword. In the Great Wall of Jinchi, the rice in the two realms of Earth and Immortal and the rice embroidery in Yupu realm are actually two people. In the Haoran world, Qingping Jianzhong's chief rice officer, and the Mi Jianxian whose name was removed by King Pingfeng's ancestors' hall, will be two again. Cui Dongshan chuckled and said, this is just in case, it's unlikely that there will be such a day. Cui Dongshan solemnly reminded, this kind of thing, no matter how much you drink in the future, you can't tell my husband to leak. Miyu smiled and said, I'm not a fool. Cui Dongshan looked at Miyu. Miyu was a little embarrassed, put a smile away, and said helplessly, compared to Master Hermit and Sect Master Cui, of course I am a fool. Cui Dongshan suddenly lowered his voice and said, Chief Mi, discuss things, trivial matters, really are trivial things that are easy to catch. For Chief Mi, it's not a lot of effort. If you don't want to sell it, you just want to know how Chief Mi will take the initiative to talk to those awe-inspiring fairy sisters of Zhou, reminisce about the past, connect with each other. Miyu heard loudly for a while, and said with a dry smile, oh, isn't it? If the hidden officer hears about such a thing, the position of the chief will not be guaranteed. It doesn't matter if you don't become one, but if you become one, you lose your title and you lose face. Cui Dongshan rubbed his chin, then find a compromise, such as, open the mirror flower water moon. If a guest comes to Tongyi's for a tour of the mountains and water, and then take the initiative to visit Mi Jianxian, we can't stop it. Miyu rubbed his chin, I'm not afraid of the shadow slanting, I'm just reminiscing about the past, why bother with a guilty conscience? The two looked at each other and said nothing. Cui Dongshan hugged the back of his head with his hands, Miyu, in my opinion, the person who is really the most suitable for the second suzerain is not Chao Sunny, but you. It's not that Chao Sunny is bad, but if you want to be the best, you have to see the Qingping sword sect with two completely different styles, and then come to serve as the third lord, the fire is enough. Such words, tell Master Hermit is not the kind of person who doesn't listen to opinions. How dare I say it right now, it's lighter to get scolded, and it's not surprising to be beaten up. Miyu gloated and said, that's right, the hidden officer is now in anger. After a moment of silence, Cui Dongshan murmured while looking at the King Shandu surrounded by the three mountains. Do you know what the real peace world is? There are many people who believe that good people are rewarded. Oh, fools only believe it, but some people believe it. Speaking of this, Cui Dongshan suddenly vibrated his clothes, his sleeves bulging, full of sky breeze, stretched out his fingers to the distance outside the mountain, eyebrows flying, said, Miyu, let us together, let this Tongyi's more appear such a person. Miyu was also drawn to Dao's heart by the rare and serious Cui Dongshan's sincere words, and his heart was stirred, and he said solemnly, let's wait and see. It's just that Cui Dongshan quickly recovered as usual, and took out a piece of paper from his sleeve. Chief Mi's words are light, don't just look at it, you have to do something down to earth. Here, I have a list here. Take it and see. They are all women who have met Chief Mi who has been to the Great Wall of Jinchi. I am not worried about the visitor. The Chief Mi will not even remember the other party's name, school, and Taoist name. Miyu gently pushed Cui Dongshan's hand away. Cui Dongshan passed it over again. Miyu pushed away again. Cui Dongshan was annoyed. You can only treat each other sincerely. I remember them all. How can I forget? How dare not to think about them? Cui Dongshan put away the list and sighed. It's no wonder that Mr. Sister wants you, the old cook, and Chief Zhou, to help check the checks together in the future, so that the Master Sister will not be deceived by the slutty wanderers like you. Miyu smiled and said, as long as I look at my peers, I only need to scan a few eyes and listen to a few words to know how well the other person is, the approximate number of paths he walked through the flowers, and the depth of his path. Cui Dongshan tut, see if you can stand it. Miyu stretched out his fingers, twisted a strand of hair on the temples, and squinted his eyes and smiled. There are only 3 things in life, which are barely worth talking about. The fairyland cuts the monsters, Chun Banzai guards the door, drunk and admires the beauties. Cui Dongshan nodded and said, look back and get a good outfit, wear a snow-white robe, wear a long sword, don't wear a jade hairpin on the head, hang a sword gourd, hold a folding fan. Miyu said helplessly, such a flowery, but cumbersome, deceived a little girl who has not been involved in the world, and cannot deceive a real beauty with vision. Cui Dongshan sneered, cheat. It's hard to tell who lied to her to come to my heart. When Cui Dongshan heard these words, he couldn't bear it anymore. He jumped up and beat Miyu with his fists and feet. Miyu covered his face and moved slightly. Cui Dongshan stopped, it really owed a beating, it's better for Shemo is good. Miyu shook his sleeves, and said solemnly, Sect Master Cui, you will have a short time when you are young, and you will work hard in Dao. Cui Dongshan said in surprise, Chief Mi, there is something, a great talent. Miyu laughed and said, I studied academic studies, but I learned a little bit from the hidden officer. Not recently, I just happened to be compiling a collection of sentences and couplets, and I am using it now. Cui Dongshan put his hands in his sleeves, stretched out his hands to cover his forehead, and said with a smile, look at it, please look at it, how has it ever been a day to build a building on a flat ground? Today's King Shandu has only the embryonic form of the Shinja ferry. Except for the ferry stop, only a house responsible for registering passenger clearance and issuing boarding jade cards was built. The temporary errand here is the old woman Cho. Due girl Hu Chuling, the little girl nicknamed Jealous and Vinegar, is now a direct disciple of Cui Dongshan, the lord of the sect. On the mountain, she is indeed considered a step-by-step good fortune. According to the old rules, the old tradition handed down from the Luopashan side, there is a table at the door, which is actually prepared by Cui Dongshan specially for Zhou Mili, as a daily rest place for the mountain tour. In fact, Qingping Jianzong is still not well known for the time being, and he has not signed a contract with the major hills and ferry in Tonggishao. Since there is no ferry, naturally no monks will settle here. This table is just a display, but Zhou Mili will be here every day. While sitting for a while, chatting with Mother Chiu and Sister Vinegar, Chiu Dus avenues and feet, the old woman is naturally close to this small water monster in the cave from Luzhou Dum Lake in Beiju. But today, after Zhou Mili left the Dongtian Taoist temple, he patrolled the mountain all the way to the outside of the house. He put the golden pole and green bamboo sticks on the table. Without worrying about Mother Chiu, he boiled a pot of boiling water and made 3 bowls of tea. First give the old mother and the vinegar a bowl each. The millet grains took their share and left the house, sitting alone on the bench by the table, with their legs hanging in the air, shaking gently. Good tea and good tea. The old chef himself. The fried tea leaves are good, and the craftsmanship of making tea is even better. Miles complement each other. Zhou Mili chewed on a piece of tea and rubbed his eyes. Really, there is a visitor. I saw 2 people in the distance, a young man, carrying a bamboo box, and a chubby, follower-like, slung and dusty, like two travelers who ate and slept. Back then, Zhou Mili had seen a lot of them on the side of Yaba Lake in his hometown. Zhou Mili suddenly gave birth to a heart of intimacy, with a small face and two sparse yellow eyebrows, as if full of joy. She hurriedly put down the tea bowl, took off the golden pole and green bamboo stick from the table, leaned against the bench. Zhou Mili walked forward quickly, but did not run too far out of the house, and when she stood still, she held it gently with one hand. The rope of the cotton satchel said in a childish voice, "Two distinguished guests, where are they from and where they are going? We are here called King Shandu, which belongs to the Qingping sword sect boundary. I apologize to the guests. There is no ferry for people to travel far." The young man carrying a bamboo box looked at the little water monster with a cotton bag slung. His expression was soft, and he said softly, "My name is Zhang Ji. Are there any taboos in the sect that require outsiders' attention?" Zhou Mili shook his head and said with a smile, "The visitor is a guest, there is no taboo." In fact, as soon as I said it, Zhou Mili regretted it. I blamed my poor business. I just came here to patrol the mountains. I have to ask Mother Chiao and Sister Vinegar. It's over, it's over. How to remedy it, what to do. The little girl in black frowned with her two sparse eyebrows, sad, and after chatting with the two outsiders, she hurried to find Mother Chiao to move the rescuer. Zhang Ji smiled and said, "This little fairy master, can you let us rest for a while?" Zhou Mili nodded vigorously, and Sister Xuan Wanchu gave them a blessing, "Please." Walking to the table together, the fat entourage beside Zhang Ji introduced himself with a smile. "Little fairy teacher, my name is Wu Shou. I am fat and thin, a horn of the Taoist horn, an ethereal spirit, not the kind of water chestnut that I eat." Zhou Mili hurriedly replied, "Master Daxian, my name is Zhou Mili, the rice in the bowl, the edible rice." Wu Shou smiled and nodded, glanced at Monsieur Feng from the corner of his eye, and said in his heart, "Master, Pang Chao is looking at this side from the mountain, but it seems that Pang Chao will not take the initiative to go down the mountain to see his master." Zhang Ji replied with his heart, "If you see it, there is nothing to talk about. If you don't see it, you don't have to be embarrassed. Wu Shou, if you can meet the young hermit, you should not ask the old things to be brought up again. Don't be pleasing. It makes us look like we are going to collect debts." This Wu Shou next to him was the person who spoke to Bao Pingyijo Baozhai in the past. In fact, he has some connections with Luopishan, because Nujiata's earliest Baozhai was Wu Shou who personally laid the foundation with the Song clan of Dei in the first place. Wu Shou was too courageous, lacking courage, or just staring at the visible way of making money. As a result, he hadn't been in business for a few years, so he ditched his staff early and closed the door fortunately, leaving only an empty shell, which is considered cheap. Together with Beiyue Weibo, he took over the Luopa mountain of Nujiashan. The tops of the hills belonged to others, so naturally they included those immortal buildings in the bag. But for so many years, Luopishan has not really started the ferry business there. At the beginning, the school had a weak foundation and there was no stock in hand. Later, a route to the southeast of Luzhou in Beiju was opened. The business just started to pick up. After the war, the entire Nujiadu was requisitioned by the Dali military, and the business operation was completely stranded. The situation has improved in recent years, but there is still a lack of a backbone for planning, living in secluded, and doing business with people. Like a mountain. Because Wu Shou made his own proposal to withdraw most of Beiping's Beipingzu, such a thing, it was not a pleasant affair with the Song family of Dali. After that, Bao Baozhai was completely lost in Beipingzu. As long as the Song clan of Dali does not change his mouth for a day, Baozhai will not dare to open an Aquarius without authorization. Even south of Chidu, the country has been gradually restored. Baozhai still does not dare to touch this mold. After an embroidered tiger walked away, a hidden official came, not to mention that these two were still brothers in the same discipline. After waiting for the two merchants to take their seats, Zhou Mili asked, "Mr. Zhang, Master Wu, would you like to have tea?" Wu Shou glanced at the tea bowl on the table. The tea leaves and the water used for making tea were not particular about it. He shook his head and smiled, "No need." Zhang Ji said, "Thank you, Master Zhou, bring me a bowl of hot tea." Zhou Mili immediately stood up and smiled, "Okay, Mr. Zhang, wait a moment." Wu Shou wondered, this little water monster is not very bright when you look at it. It doesn't look like a disguise. It's just a cave mansion. She is really the right guardian of the Luopa mountain and can be worshipped as a mountain guard. Aren't you afraid of outsiders watching jokes? Zhang Ji frowned slightly. A white rainbow swept across the ground, and took a seat, sitting on a bench, beckoning and shouting loudly, "Guardian right, don't forget to count the 2 bowls of Mr. and me." In addition, there was another green shirt guest standing behind Wu Shou with one hand on the fat man's shoulder. "My family Zhou Mili is the guardian of the Luopa right guard. You are an outsider, do you have an opinion?" It was Chen Pingan and Cui Dongshan who returned to Xiandushan slowly all the way. Wu Shou was stunned on the spot. Didn't he speak with his own heart? "Why are you being heard?" As soon as Wu Shou was about to move, he noticed the hand on his shoulder and pressed it down, and the movement of the aura in the whole human body became stagnant, like a river freezing. The man continued to laugh and said, "I want to ask you something." Zhang Ji clasped his fists and said, "Chen Shanju, Wu is thin and unobstructed. He is so offensive. I will apologize for him first." Chen Pingan squinted at the old patriarch, and interrupted Zhang Ji's words directly, "This is Qingping sword sect, you can't help him." Cui Dongshan sullened his face and hold back his smile, "Good, good, this one is really his own good brother, and Wu Shou is a tough guy who dares to cross here in Qingshan. If you say millet grains, you will have a big brain. Rotten. Take a look, how good my husband is usually, and he always respects his predecessors. This makes you angry. You deserve it, and you shouldn't say it badly about our millet grains." After Chen Pingan held with one hand, he put one hand on Wu Shou's shoulder, leaned forward, bowed his head, and smiled and said, "If you pretend to be deaf and dumb like this again, I'm going to give a dismissal order." Wu Shou tremblingly said, "Forgive the sins, the hermits forgive sins, unintentional words, many offenses, I am obsessed with ghosts, and my mind is muddled." Millet and Hu Chuling brought 3 bowls of tea together. The vinegar and vinegar gently put down the 2 bowls of tea, and the millet grains were responsible for serving Zhang Ji. She grinned at the good man mountain owner. This Mr. Zhang is an outsider, and he should have enough etiquette and serve them with both hands. Chen Pingan narrowed his eyes with a smile, nodded gently, and understood. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, "Guardian right, you go back to the house with the vinegar and vinegar. The outside is cold and it's not warmer than the house." Zhou Mili frowned, "I am a big monster, afraid of the cold." What a joke. It's just a flash of light, and I know, Goodman Mountain mainly talks with people about business, big business. Chen Pingan patted Wu Thin on the shoulder and sat on the remaining bench. Just now when Mr. White Goose got up, he started to wipe the bench beside him with his sleeves, and was busy. Chen Pingan said a few words straightforwardly. "Mr. Zhang has finished drinking his tea and can leave. There is no need to talk about the reopening of Baiguozai in Aquarius Island." Even if the Dolly Court nodded, even if it was Emperor Songhe's promise, it would still be inaccurate. "I said no, no." Zhang Ji smiled as usual and took a sip of tea. Wu Shou smiled bitterly, "Lord Chen Shan, is it because of my reckless words that I want to have a bad relationship with the whole Baozhai?" Zhang Ji smiled and said, "This kind of personal grievances don't involve my burden." Wu Shou's heart tightened, and he nodded vigorously. I'm the one who said the wrong thing again. Jian Xiu's bad temper, this time it can be regarded as a real experience. Cui Dongshan sighed, Zhangji, Zhangji, you really brought a living ancestor by your side. It was originally a good idea, and the opportunity of another village to be bright, but it made such troubles worse. No, the two continents business was lost all of a sudden. Imu, I've already slapped myself with two big mouths, and then slapped old ancestor Wu a few times. Zhou Mili stood by the door of the house, and when she saw someone finish drinking the tea in the bowl, she was ready to add water at any time. As for what was talked about at that table, she couldn't hear or eavesdrop. Most of the big white goose shook her arms again with a surgical magical power. Look, the big white goose winked at herself. Alas, they are all the masters now. Nothing is right. Let's take a look at the good guys, who are talking and laughing with people. It is estimated that this door-to-door business is pretty sure. Another sword repairer came to transform the rainbow and landed at the table. Cui Dongshan didn't think it was too big to see the excitement. He sniffed, and his eyes complained, Chief me, this old ancestor Wu, just verbally scolded our millet heads. It's not alive. Mi Yu was originally smiling, but his face was gloomy when he heard the words, and he stared at the sluggish face. Wu Laozu, oh. That's the realm of Yuaning, soaring courage. After talking, I will find something for myself. Go to the ground and dig a hole. Zhou Mili saw Mi Yu, quietly raised his hand, hooked his hand, Yumi, come here, the good guy mountain lord is negotiating business with people, we too are not this material, we don't mix. Mi Ye's face changed again, his eyes were gentle, and he walked to the door of the house. During the period, he turned his head and looked at Zhang Ji and Wu Shou. Zhang Ji was okay. He still looked at ease. Wu Shou only felt like falling into an ice cave. Zhang Ji finished drinking the tea in the bowl, turned around, smiled and lifted the white bowl in his hand. Zhou Mili hurriedly took the stove above the brazier, rushed to the table, took the tea bowl, poured it 7 or 8 minutes full, and then handed it back to Mr. Zhang. Zhang Ji thanked the little girl again and laughed. Next time you make tea and treat guests, you need to be careful about taking water. I don't care. I'm used to eating and sleeping. As long as I can quench my thirst, it's a good tea. But I have to murmur in my heart, it's just that. The water for making tea in the future is better to draw water from the clear springs in the mountains. If I remember correctly, there are good water sources in the 3 old mountains. Is this particular about drinking tea? Is that true? Zhou Mili glanced at the good man, Chen Pingan nodded, and the girl in black immediately smiled and thanked Mr. Zhang, teached. Zhang Ji took a sip of tea and said with a smile, Luopishan is really different. Zhang Ji held the tea bowl in both hands, and smiled, I'm officially introduced. My name is Zhang Ji. I was born in Luoyang. I was delisted by the genealogy after breaking the ancestral precepts of the ancestral hall. The number of roads is bigger than Mr. Fan's foresight and Lu Keishan's family business. Next to him, Wu Shou, Dao Haolingjiao, was once the person in charge of Beipingzu branch of Beipingzu. Wu Shou only stared at the abacus and the account book. Never looked up to see the long-term trend. The only credit is the accidental collision, leaving those buildings for Nujiadu, and now it belongs to Luopa Mountain. It is really fortunate, so many years, to meet with Baozhai from all continents. Only this matter allows Wu Shou to stand up straight and talk, blowing a few words of cowhide without drafting. Wu Shou's face was bitter. The owner rarely talks to others in this way, not to mention that he had previously warned himself not to mention Nujiadu. However, Zhang Ji's last few words are not a hypocrisy. Wu Shou does often show off the matter with his colleagues, but only slightly change the facts, saying how he met the young hermit and how he met. At that time, Chen Pingan was just a young kiln worker, but Wu Shou looked so insightful, and I saw that the other party was not easy at first glance. On the wine table, I felt that June is not a thing in the pool. Chen at that time, Pingan didn't believe it, but just toasted with himself, and had a big bowl, too much talk, and in the end, Wu Shou himself almost believed it. Don't think that this inferior method is so funny. In the business field, it is really possible to exchange for real money. Chen Pingan said, I can't control Tongyi's how. Zhang Ji was also obviously relieved. Wu Shou lowered his head and wiped the sweat on his forehead. As for whether or not to behave to others, dumb eats coptis, and knows bitterly. Zhang Ji was also a straightforward person, and asked directly, dared to ask Mr. Qin, apart from your Qingping sword sect, how many powers can talk in this Tongyi's how area? Cui Dongshan shook the white bowl. The news is so good. Is it from Yugizong's side, or from the household department of the Daquan dynasty, that the wind has leaked? Chen Pingan finished drinking his tea and said with a smile, Cui Dongshan is in charge now, you guys are talking about you. He got up and left and walked towards the door of the house. Chen Pingan touched the head of the millet grains and smiled, you don't need to continue to help add water. Miyu has arms around his chest, back against the wall, always staring at that Wu Shou. Chen Pingan said with no anger, well, the eyes can kill people, how come I don't know that sword immortal is so bullish? Miyu smiled awkwardly. After entering the house, Chen Pingan smiled and greeted Qiu Du and Hu Chuling. They sat by a brazier in the house, stretched out their hands to warm the fire, hesitated, and said, millet grains, someone just thought, well, anyway, they said something. It's not a good jerk, I happened to listen to it. Mealy moved the small bench, approached the good man Mountain Lord, stretched out his hand to cover his mouth, and said in a low voice, it's not that Mr. Zhang, right? Chen Pingan smiled and nodded, it's the fat man named Wu Shou. Mr. Zhang still likes you very much. Millet Grains suddenly raised their eyebrows and said, haha, if I get it, I know it won't be Mr. Zhang. The little girl in black shook her head and her shoulders fell together. She was quite happy, as if Wu Shou's opinion, no matter what she said, was ignored by her. The little girl was happy to patronize. Just like she often looks at the scenery on the banks of the downhill cliffs alone. If you are unhappy, just float away with the clouds. If you are happy, like a bird on a branch, stay as a guest. Chen Pingan couldn't help standing up, but it was Miye's turn to panic and coughed, hi, my sir, it's really not possible, let me do it. Zhou Milit stretched out his hand, gently grabbed the sleeve of the good man Shanju, shook his head, grinned, as if saying, how can I be unhappy in my own home? The little girl scratched her face, then began to whisper to the good guy, saying that she and Pei Qian would also secretly say that Sister Tsin was silly. Chen Pingan smiled and rubbed the head of the millet grain. What did the right guardian say? Why didn't I hear clearly? I don't know, I can't remember. Zhou Mili, ha. Good guy Mountain Lord, ha. Zhou Mili, ha ha ha. Good guy Mountain Lord, you won. Miyu looked at the hidden officer, sighing, that is, the hidden officer will not touch the flowers, otherwise he and Chief Zhou will not be an opponent. Chen Pingan turned his head and cursed, get out of your bastard. Miyu was stunned, wondering how the hermit Sama heard his own voice. On a dinner table in Luopa Mountain, sitting Zhu Lian, Chen Wanchu, a girl with a mink hat under the pseudonym Xiago. Xiago sighed, Mr. Zhu, I thought that you are in the mountains. With the abilities of the hermit, you must have thousands of men and horses. There are dozens or hundreds of sword repairers, hundreds of chi trainers, thousands of pure martial arts, plus some outside disciples, handyman slaves, etc. The young hermit gave an order, where to fight. If you have nothing to do, go to Dolly Capital to show off your power and take a stroll around. I didn't expect that there would be so many people on Luopa Mountain. Xiao Mo was really too, not willing to show any strength, probably still lazy. They don't die, she and Xiao Mo, plus the nameless name that they didn't think about, are not bad, but they are all alone. As for the dirt of the covered baby, and her aunts also don't like the excitement, but the other Wang Youwu will definitely reopen the sect. The bird is like, the killer is not enough, and the skill is not too high. Zhu Lian smiled and said, in fact, there is a lotus root blessed land, plus there will be more people. Xiago made no secret of his sneer, put a large amount of chopsticks and vegetables into his mouth, and said vaguely, that can be counted as a person. If you add it together, can you be a Jade Poo world? Chen Wanshu heard the words, but silently lowered his head to chew the rice. Zhu Lian smiled as usual, one side nurtures another person, although each has its own life, it is life anyway. Thanks to the dog, he just clicked the chopsticks like flying, absent-mindedly, and said in a perfunctory, reasonable. After that, Nuanshu packed up his dishes and went to the stove. Zhu Lian smiled and reminded, thank you girl, don't test people's hearts casually in the future. We Luopa, although there are not many rules, but there are few rules, no matter who it is, family members, or guests, you have to pay a little attention to them. Miss Xia is a newcomer, so I have to make this clear. Xiago hiccuped and grinned, I see, you do what you like when you come to the village, and the guest is as you please, I understand the truth. She stood up and walked out of the house, walk for a walk 100 steps after a meal, and live to 99, to live to 99. Zhu Lian shook his head and said nothing. It's not scary if you don't know how to pretend to understand, but you're afraid of understanding but pretend that you don't know how to pretend to understand. In the final analysis, this is just Bai Jing who came to find Xiao Mo, and still doesn't think this Luopa mountain is really scary, so apart from Xiao Mo, there is nothing that Bai Jing really cares about. Even the Taoist immortal of the gatekeeper. In Bai Jing's eyes, maybe it's only half of it. After Xiago walked out of the house, he pulled the corners of his mouth. It was a pity that Mr. Zhu was a scholar, and he was a little more disciplined. After that, Xiago started wandering around the peaks of the Luopa mountain. For example, he would go to the bamboo building. While the girl in the pink skirt was cleaning the house on the first floor, if nothing had happened, she went straight across the threshold and walked in to take a look. Nuanshu, who was busy at the time, just stopped his work and waited until the girl Xiao left the house. Nuanshu didn't say anything in the end. Xiago went to the back mountain again and sat on the roof, watching the two young men and women practicing boxing there. When they noticed the uninvited guest on the roof, they immediately stopped walking and looked at the mink hat with doubts. Girl, Xiago just stretched out his hand and motioned to continue practicing your punches, as long as he didn't exist. Xiago just wandered like this for a few days, went to the top of the mountain and lay in a daze over the railing. She was still wandering around in the square outside the gate of the Patriarch of Ji-Se Peak. In the twilight that day, Xianwei planned to finish work on time. Xianwei usually went to the old mountain cook to eat and drink, but occasionally he would cook a small stove for himself and cook himself, which is called self-reliance and adequate food and clothing. The main reason is that Xianwei felt that going to the old steward Zhu, climbing down the mountain, and going back and forth, was a bit troublesome and delayed his reading. If scholars don't read more books, what can they do? Xianwei usually takes the bamboo chair back to the house of the Dafeng brothers on time when the gatekeeper arrives. He doesn't slow down his work and never waits much. Now there are no foreign guests in Luopa anyway. 1 inch of time and 1 inch of gold, read one more book, even if you turn a few more pages, you will increase your knowledge. As soon as Xianwei was about to put away the bamboo chair, he saw the girl in the mink hat walking down the mountain, looking unhappy. Xian Wei put his sleeves in his sleeves and stood there, intending to chat with the little girl casually before returning to the house to continue reading. Xian Wei waited for her to approach the gate of the mountain, said hello with a smile, and asked, "Is this girl Shuetsun practicing boxing?" Xiago swayed all the way to the foot of the mountain, rubbed the sable hat, and shook his head. "I don't know what to learn. I don't know what's going on. It may be that I accidentally said something wrong. This has annoyed Mr. Zhu. I drove down the mountain and sent it to a shop in Qilong Alley as an errand." Xian Wei was greatly surprised. The old steward Zhu had such a good temper. "Miss Xia, how much evil did you make and how big a demon did you make Mr. Zhu feel unhappy?" Xian Wei hesitated for a moment, but couldn't help but said, "Xia girl, in our mountain, there is always no taboo. What is going on? I will help you review the situation and find the fault. I will accompany you. Go up the mountain together, apologize to the old cook, admit a mistake, and stay on the mountain." Xiago stared blankly at this fake Taoist wearing a cotton preaching robe. Except for the wooden hairpin above his head, this servant is really not the Taoist priest in any way. If this was found by that mysterious Wang Youwu, and Xiao Mo was not on the mountain, wouldn't he have a crunch end? Xian Wei smiled and said, "Thank you girl, how difficult it is to admit a mistake, don't feel embarrassed, it won't be a shame." Xiago blinked. Could it be a fool? He and Xiao Mo, a small group of them of similar age and seniority, apart from the top 3 in killing power and defense, the rest of the old rubbish, in fact, according to the calculation method of ordinary monks, they are not so rubbish. They are good at each. For example, Wang Youwu with the name Mountain Monarch has the most complicated spells, saves his life, and steals sneak attacks. They are all good at them. The reason why they have a sword on their back is because Wang Youwu is still a half-hanging sword. Shou, although it is extremely impure, the 2 flying swords that were refined were both grabbed halfway, but swordsmanship is barely considered swordsmanship. In addition, Wang Yu's Dao name is not taken for nothing. The so-called mountain monarch does not mean that the old thing is in the mountains and can learn from the saints of the Sanjiao family. It is related to the human harmony at the foot of the mountain. To make it simple, as long as the world is not good, the more people who can't survive under the mountain, the higher Wang Yu's Taoism and deeds. Now the book says that harsh government is more fierce than tigers. Therefore, Wang Youwu has a natural advantage over the others who woke up, so when I went to see Bai Zhe before, the old man deliberately sullen his face, stealing joy along the way. If Wang Youwu wakes up early, he can hide in the Haoran world early and carefully select a hidden dojo, such as the Fuyao Island that used to be war-torn, and one who is not careful, really hopes that Wang Youwu will be among the 14 realms. Just because of the opportunity for the harmony of this relationship, it is in the meaning of the Tao name. But Xiago has always felt that this old thing that is willing to learn everything and nothing is not worthy of the excellent title of Shanjun itself. Guan Yi, it's the same thing. If she followed the wild Jiaozi account earlier and rushed to the battlefield in the awe-inspiring world, she would clean up the mess, and then eat it all the way. It might be more useful than the Beiying. In the final analysis, they all blamed Master Bai Zhe for being confused when encountering major events, returning to the wilderness too late, and waking up a few of them too late. The guy who is now aliased as Hutu is probably deliberately disgusting Bai Zhe. It's no wonder that after seeing a few of them, Bai Zhe seemed to linger on Hutu the longest. Are you stupid? Hoa and Master Bai Zhe are witty, not looking for death. Fortunately, the wild world lacks top combat power, otherwise it will belch. The little master back then was famous for being reasonable and good-tempered. Bai Zhe was about the same and easy to talk, but the problem was how terrible these two were, unreasonable and hard to talk. Bai Jing had seen it with his own eyes. Xiago laughed and said, knowing a mistake can improve Mo Dian. I don't understand the basics. Xianwei smiled, and couldn't help but slander in his heart. How could she look at this little girl? She didn't look like a sincere person, she knew a hammer. Xiago walked along the mountain road towards the town. Xianwei carried the bamboo chair to the house, intending to separate the narration notes of the Dafeng brothers into a separate book, and his job will be promoted in the future. If you don't be this wind and sun hard-working janitor, you have to save some treasure for the next job. From Jing Dafeng, to himself, and from generation to generation, the predecessors planted trees to enjoy the shade, which is also a good talk. In the spring season, it rains over the mountains, verdant like drops. Early in the morning, Xianwei shrank and was sitting on a bamboo chair dozing off, dazed, as if he heard someone calling down Master Xianwei, and finally opened his eyelids. Xianwei saw a familiar face. The yellow hat and blue shoes turned out to be Mr. Xiao Mo back. Xianwei hurriedly sat up straight, reached out his hand and patted his cheek, embarrassed. It's easy to get sleepy. Xiao Mo smiled and said, the season is right now. It is the time of the spring festival, the hardship of Daoist Master Xianwei. Starting tomorrow, I will visit the door for a few days. Daoist Master Xianwei just keeps up the spirit. Xianwei hurriedly waved his hand. If it doesn't happen, it won't happen. How dare you let Mr. Xiao Mo look at the door? How decent is it? Mr. Xiao Mo's kindness leads me. I promise that the door and the book are correct. Xiao Mo sat on the bamboo chair beside him and let out a long breath. Xianwei asked, Mr. Xiaomo, did Chen Shanju not come back together? Xiao Mo squeezed a smiling face and said, the son has something to do with Tongyi's Hao, so he will return later. Xianwei was a little strange, and asked tentatively, is something on my mind? Xiao Mo thought for a while, and said, I have to meet someone I don't want to see, and I can't avoid it, so I feel a little worried. This Bai Jing who had been entangled with him was probably Xiao Mo's only troublesome hand. Xianwei nodded, everyone has their own worries, it is normal. Xianwei didn't think he could solve anything, put his hands on his knees, patted lightly, remained silent for a long time, and hummed a folk song from his hometown. The mountain is a journey, the water is a journey, the wind is changing, and the snow is changing. Sorrow near the road, sorrow far away, with a sound in the south and a sound in the north. Think long, hate long, river flow, river flow. Dreams are hard to come true, meanings are hard to pacify, the east hill is green, the west hill is green. The New Year's Eve shop has an extra shop assistant. Of course, Shiro, the shopkeeper, has no objection, just adding a pair of tableware. The little mute is not very happy anymore, don't think about it, there is another bastard. As a result, after only getting along for a day, the girl with weird name made Zhou Junchen look at her with admiration, full of affection. She was more concerned about making money than Zhou Junchen. Xiago and Shiro first borrowed the account books accumulated over the years, and calculated a daily amount of silver in the account. Then she went straight to the point and said that in the future, the shop must tell her. After the accounts, the 50% of the income exceeding the money goes to her. Shiro doesn't care. Zhou Junchen feels that this transaction is not a loss, even if the resolution is passed. Then Xiago blocked the door, but all the guests who went to the Chaotu shop next door would be dragged to the New Year's shop to take a look, and Zhou Junchen looked at her posture and wanted to go to Huaiwang County. Signs were posted on the walls of the street. Xiago and the two of them talked about their own thoughts. They said that Nujiadu can set up a sign to attract customers to the cakes of the New Year's Eve shop. Anyway, Nujiadu, they are all on the top of your Luopa mountain. On the wooden sign, besides the specific address of the New Year's shop in the town, what kinds of cakes are there that have been tasted by the Sword Immortal, the Sovereign Lord, and the Emperor of a certain country? Absolutely, such as Ruanqiong of Longquan Jianzong, the current Lord Lu Xianyang, the god Song Qizhen, the king Song Jisun of the Dali domain, and the last Tai of Fujiang Water Yanghua, make up 10 of his mother's famous, in short, treasure bottles. Whoever is famous in Zhou is honored to be on the list. Regardless of whether they have eaten it or not, if someone scolds the door, I apologize to him. Let's change another brand. In fact, there is no need to change it, just erase the name. Shi Rou was stunned to hear this kind of business. Zhou Junshen's eyes brightened. If it weren't for Shi Rou to stop him, the little mute had already gone to the backyard to look for wooden boards and prepare pens. The little mute has seen someone who makes money fiercely, but has never seen someone so shameless to make money. In the words of the name Xiago, people can't even make money for the sake of face. The little mute felt at ease all of a sudden, and the child rarely had a smiling face on the side of outsiders. I'm getting acquainted. Xiago is going to read the book with his children today. Zhou Junchen likes to read those strange novels. Xiago is different. I like Qingqing, my gifted man and beautiful woman, the most. Xiago reads the book and asks the little dumb Zhou Junchen, since you are the only grandson of Lord Qin Shan now, you can only work hard to earn some money here all year round. It's a bit too miserable, don't you feel wronged? In the wild world, as a direct descendant of the founder of the mountain, he would not have the face to mess with the mountain if he didn't get a few moths at home or outside. The child grinned. I am not familiar with Qin Pingon. I haven't seen each other a few times in these years, and I haven't talked a lot about it. I don't take him seriously anyway. Xiago nodded, ambitious. The girl in the mink hat suddenly closed the book, wiped her mouth, and laughed. Zhou Junchen thought it was weird. He seemed to be walking down the street with Deng's apprentice and seeing a beautiful woman. Xiago walked out of the counter, helped the mink cap, poked his head out from the door, and looked at the guy who walked out of Qilong Alley, yellow hat, blue shoes, green bamboo stick. Hey, handsome. It is true that Lu Yaoan knows that Molly has seen people's hearts for a long time. In the Great Wall of Sword Qi, he dared to show his face, earn some military exploits, and earn some reputation, and said after all, don't worry, Qin Qing will sit on the top of the city behind him. He will surely protect his life. Look, when you get here, you'll be exposed. Are you afraid that I will kill him and worry that you won't be able to keep him? Xiao Mo said, the son is going to see someone temporarily. It's very important. A Bai Jing can't be compared at all. Xiago wondered, who? There is such a person in Tong Yizhou. If I remember correctly, Tongyi's top combat power is far inferior to Bai Jiluzu and Nampasuzu. The two climbed up the level together, and Xiao Mo said, it has nothing to do with you. Xiago said, really don't drink. Xiao Mo hesitated, it's on the side of Qilong Alley. It's just for drinking in my grass-to-head shop. There is wine in the old fairy Jia. I will say hello to him when I look back. Borrow a few pots of wine, old fairy Jia. I don't need to make up afterwards if it's not a matter of calculation. Xiago rolled his eyes. I'm so angry with my old lady. Drink a drink, and have so many ways. If you are proud of it, is this considered famous? How about the little Mo who wandered the world alone with his sword, the little Mo who brewed with the master of the Bixiao cave of Luobaotin, and the sword repairer who had almost done Yangji? Xiago wrinkled his nose, as if saying, Xiaomo, I'm so sad that you have become like this. Xiao Mo turned a blind eye to this and walked towards the Chao-Tu shop. Xiago was suddenly hungry at the sheep, but Xiao Mo held her head, Bai Jing. In an instant, both Xiao Mo and Bai Jing's hearts trembled, and the two ascending realm sword repairmen turned their heads and looked at the highest point of Qilong Alley almost at the same time. Someone was sitting over there. Standing beside him was a little boy with a stubborn stature, holding a sword in both hands, smiling but not smiling, overlooking Bai Jing and Xiao Mo. And the gentleman with his eyes smiled and said, "Be busy first, when we don't exist." I am willing to recommend myself a pillow seat and put it on both of us, the same reason. Xiao Mo was about to talk. Chen Pingan quietly took a seat at the wine table, and smiled. "Xiao Mo, don't agree to agree with your body." As for Xiago, someone stretched out his hand to hold the mink cap on the girl's head. "I didn't care about you just now, but the result is still so leathery." Xiago shrank his neck, his eyes complaining, Shema, hurry up and be fair to me, I am timid and afraid of misery." A cultivator, wandering thousands of miles, is a hammer. Aren't these two wandering for thousands of years? Xiandu Mountain, King Shandu. Cui Dongshan broke his fingers and started counting, and reported the names of several allies one by one: the Quan Yao family, Pushan Yunkatang, Tapingshan, Yuguazang, Aizhao Lu family, and Yu family of the Xuanmi dynasty of China. 6 for the time being, that's it. The rich contribute the money, the powerful contribute, perform their duties, have a clear division of labor, love each other, and help each other in the same boat. Zhang Ji nodded. It's a good match. The average ascended realm cultivator can't afford such a great situation. This is the potential background of a hidden official of the last generation of the Great Wall of Jinchi. That Wu Shou's eyelids trembled, especially when he heard the Lu family from Aizhao. He wanted to retreat. Now he is regarded as the third in command of the branch of Bao Zhai Tong Yezhou. In order to observe the after-effects, if you can't make any more achievements, you will have to be settled by the Patriarch Hall. It's not that the Lu family of Aizhou is cruel and heartless in making money, but that Lu family has always liked to completely dominate a business, and outsiders can only assist from the side, unable to intervene in the operation of key financial lines. In the baggage house, there are a lot of trades, rumors, and bragging, which is useless. According to the rules of the Ancestor Hall, if anyone takes a fancy to a certain business, half of the money must be paid out of his own pocket. If you lose money, whether you smash the pot or sell iron, or borrow money from someone, you have to make up the money obediently. If you don't have enough money, you have to set up a note and write an IOU. Anyway, you have to make up the hole in the baggage first. It is definitely not just taking the money, spending lavishly, or squandering one's own pockets. Moreover, there will be a special accountant at the Patriarch Hall. His identity is a bit similar to that of a battlefield supervising army. It is more difficult to get around this person and to manipulate the accounts than to climb to the sky. Wu Shou has an uncle who has been paying off debts for Bao Zhai for 700 years. Back then, when Shishu was the most beautiful, in Lixiaozu, Tianyu Dongtian once borrowed a large sum of money with Shishu. Just by eating interest every year, you can lie down and enjoy your blessings. What a rich country is wealth. Enemy continent. The result is that the heart is too fat and gets involved in the internal affairs of the upper and lower sections. Cui Dongshan glanced at Wu Shou's subtle changes in expression. He is good at making money, and he only knows how to make money. It seems that the scar is healed and he forgot to hurt. Could it be that Zhang Ji came to King Shandu for fishing, using Wu Shou as bait? It's like a big fish that is hard to catch and easy to get out of the hook, but for an old fox like Zhang Ji, once a big fish out of the water with a rod, you can roughly infer his husband's temperament. He caught the hermit, Chen Pingan, and the two emerging sects of Luopa Mountain and Qingping Jian Zone. In short, Zhang Ji rushed to deliberately decouple the big fish, only to make long-term plans for the entire Bao Zhai. Cui Dongshan was more annoyed by this, so he was too lazy to turn around, and asked directly, "Zhang Ji, why are you such a shrewd person here to deliberately bring a Wu Shou here to find it uninteresting?" Zhang Ji smiled and said, "It's still not as smart as Sect Master Cui and your husband." "How do you say this?" "Speak carefully, don't follow in the footsteps of old ancestor Wu." "Why?" Sect Master Cui knowingly asked. Zhangji, I have the ability and confidence to pretend to be stupid, but you are really stupid to pretend to be stupid with me. One word of advice, I am now the master of Qingping sword sect, and I can follow my husband in the same way, issued the second order to chase off guests. I can't control your Baozhai's business in the south of Tonggishao. There is Yuguizong's site. I am not familiar with the current Lord Weiying, and I became the old lord of Jiangyu with Yuguizong. It's not too familiar, but the business in the north will not go smoothly from now on. The Baozhai in Beipingzu was expelled from the country by the embroidered tiger Cui Huang, and his fate was similar to Lu Taozi's Shishan Jianin. They all fell apart without joy, and thus forged Liangzi. Cui Yang absolutely does not allow any outside forces to have the slightest disagreement in the upcoming battle, pulling back legs, and doing their own things. This is because before the war started, Baozhai smelled a crisis, but the Baozhai branch of Haoranzhou, only Wu Shou's Beipingzu, behaved too much. Chen Pingan didn't need to bother about the twists and turns, so the so-called removal order on the table by Chen Pingan had already made it clear. Now the battle between the Haoran world and the wild world is only half fought. Don't think about taking advantage of it. Now that you have the ability to avoid harm, stop thinking about profiting, at least don't think about Aquarius. And Zhang Ji deliberately brought Wu Shou to visit here. Isn't it a temptation? For this young hidden official, Zhang Ji has 3 things to verify. First, will he serve as a master of the country and inherit the cultural heritage of the brother Xiuhu? Cui Yang. Secondly, did Qingping Jianzong in Tonggishao have the ambition to be the leader of an immortal mansion on one continent? Thirdly, Chen Pingan's disposition is similar to embroidered tigers, and how different is it from Cui Yang? Zhang Ji and Bao Zhai are only good-looking. How much capital Bao Zhai invested here? You have to read the 3 answers before you can get a rough conclusion. Because the 2 ferry crossings that Bao Zhai really cares about are not the Aquarius Island where the southern countries have recovered so quickly, but the 2 places of Tongya Island and Fuyao Island. There are Xianjia ferry crossings in Zhuzhou in the world, either open or dark, almost all of them are bought and sold. Cui Dongshan suddenly smiled and said, Wu Shou's Berdenzhai, in Aquarius, he didn't do anything obscure, right? Zhang Ji said indifferently, if there is, wherever I need Mi Jianxian to remind Wu Shou to find a place by himself, I have already helped him choose it. Berdenzhai was created by me. I have worked hard, and everything is fine. I like to stare personally, so Bao Qiuzhai is always a one-word man. For example, if I were the master of the Middle-earth Delankyu and dealt with Xiaolonkius evil obstacles, there was no need to go through the Patriarch Hall to discuss matters and decide in one word. All you need to do is send the Dragon-Beard Immortal, and when he arrives at this Tonggishao Xiaolonkyu, he will be executed on the spot. People who do business have their own way of making money. Since ancient times, they are only businessmen. In the final analysis, they are still human beings. They still have to talk about the bottom line. I want to buy and sell for a long time, follow general trend. But if you do a lot of bad things, people won't accept it. Upon hearing this, Cui Dongshan nodded. Zhang Ji said, back then, after driving away Baozhai, Cui Guisher immediately introduced Mr. Fan and the merchants to Beipingzu, just like clearing the market for the latter. After suffering from this boring loss, we Baozhai accepted the plant, and we took the blame, and there was no complaint. Then as Mr. Chen said, regarding the reopening of Aquarius Island, when the world will be peaceful, Baozhai and Luo Pashan, come to discuss it carefully. As for Tonggishao, what is Baozhai's sincerity and what is the background? I think we can use the profane cooperation as a starting point. What is Cui Zong's idea? Wu Shou knew that his ancestor and the white-clothed boy were communicating with each other. The fat man regretted his intestines. He had known that little girl for a bowl of hot tea. It would be better than sitting now. For some reason, the young hermit walked out of the house again, with the little black girl carrying the stove beside him. Now Wu Shou saw this little water monster in the cave mansion realm, the dignified Yuanying realm, but if you don't feel stumbling, Wu Shou can't wait to kneel and kowtow to grandma. Zhou Mili added tea to everyone again. It was Wu Shou's turn, and he hurriedly bowed his head to thank the little girl again and again, almost tearing in his eyes. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, "The last fat man also walked through Xiandu Mountain, so you are not as lucky as you." Chen Pingan sat on the bench, and Zhou Mili sat aside. From his sleeve, he took out a folded Yuzhu folding fan. Chen Pingan placed the bamboo fan on the table lightly and smiled. "I was in the house just now, and I remembered that Mr. Zhang personally opened Baozhai at Yuanyangzu. Zhai's name is Hichi, and he opened the door to do business. It really means to make money with harmony." A few friends and I coincided with the meeting. I visited Hichi Zhai carefully. It was an eye-opener. It seemed that I owed Mr. Zhang a favor and 2 letters. The world 1 yard goes to 1 yard, business is not righteous and righteous. It turned out that in Hakazai before, Chen Pingan caught this precious folding fan with a glance, but he didn't carry much money from the gods at the time, and he was ashamed of his pocket. He never thought that there would be a beauty of Fulu in the Zhai, and he offered to offer it. Take away the fan, and in the future, at any ferry crossing, you just need to make up the money. Afterwards, Baozhai will definitely destroy the IOU notes. After that, Li Huai took a look at the mountain ferry that looked like a bonsai, and an old willow tree elder inhabited it, and Baozhai offered 10 grains of rain money, and Chen Pingan signed another note in place of Li Huai. Cui Dongshan stretched out his hand and took the folding fan, and opened it with a snap. The fan was excerpted from Su Zis prayer for rain. The fan itself can be regarded as a great treasure of water magic. The magic treasure cannot be removed. The sword repairer with better aptitude, good luck, choose a time when thunder and lightning will increase the rain. After bathing and changing clothes, turn on the fan and watch. While watching the weather in cursive script, by chance, maybe he could still learn a little bit of sword spirit from Liuzhou, the sword fairy of the past. Cui Dongshan wondered, "Sir, Baozhai was opened in Parrot Island at that time, and it seems that he is not in Yuanyangzu." Chen Pingan said suddenly, "Is that so?" "That's what I remember." "Wu Shou is about to collapse, your hermit, are you so sincere when you speak?" Zhang Ji took out 2 notes from his sleeves. They were signed by Luopashan Chen Pingan. One of the IOUs was 50 rain money from the folding fan, and 10 rain money from the Xianshan bonsai. Cui Dongshan glanced at it, and quickly took out 60 grains of rain money, intending to share the worries for his husband, pay off the debt, and retrieve the IOU. "Don't destroy it, you have to keep it. In the future, Cui Dongshan can give the Taoist Nen a look, 10 grains of rain money." Be stupid, the old willow tree spirit, but he talked to the real person of Chunyang Lu Yen, the word Xianshan, on the fist-sized rock, but Lu Yen wrote with sword energy, these cliff carvings are authentic. However, Zhangji held down the 2 IOUs with his fingers, and smiled. "Mr. Qin gave out 60 Gu Yuqin today. Even if the debt is settled, according to the rules, these 2 IOUs need to be destroyed immediately. But I want to follow Mr. Qin has a discussion. We have a burden. Can we spend 70 grains of rain, which is equivalent to buying these 2 IOUs with Mr. Qin?" Zhou Mili was stunned. The words of the good man mountain master, 2, Luopashan Chen Pingan, 10 words, it is equivalent to earning 10 grains of rain money. Is it so valuable? Chen Pingan smiled and shook his head. It's too unruly. It's still more refreshing to have money and money. Zhang Ji smiled and said, "It is not an exception specifically for Mr. Qin. In the history of Baozhai, there are many precedents for this kind of thing." Cui Dongshan sneered and said, 70 grains of rain money, send a beggar, 700. Millet grains are shocked again, to buy goose, no, the lovely and respectable big brother is doing business with people. Has he always liked such a lion to open his mouth? Are you afraid of being beaten? I never thought that Mr. Zhang immediately took out a big bag from his sleeve, put it on the table, and quickly retracted the 2 IOUs into his sleeve. Then it settled, it's the money and the money. The original Luopishan Chen Pingan will only become more and more valuable in the future. Of course, it is difficult to be worth 10 words and you need to use 700 grains of rain money to buy it. That is too exaggerated, dozens of grains of rain money is a more appropriate and safe price. In the future, Hakazai, if you encounter a wealthy man who is hard to buy a good mountain, you will not worry about selling it. But these are 2 IOUs with extraordinary significance. In particular, Chen Pingan made up the written records before participating in the discussions of the Chinese-Turkish Confucian Temple. After seeing this scene, Wu Shou admired in his heart. He is worthy of being the ancestor of his own baggage fast. Cui Dongshan carefully dragged the big bag of Gu Yuqian, and it was not an officialdom to lose it. Otherwise, would it be regarded as some kind of elegant bribery? Alas, luck can't stop it, and there are 700 grains of rain falling from the sky. The owner of the accountant is so happy to plant autumn. With a smile on his face, Chen Pingan looked at Cui Dongshan, who was a thief. Cui Dongshan had to change the route midway, pushed the money bag to the millet grains, and said earnestly, "Guardian right, this money belongs to the public, remember to keep it and return it to the Wei accountant on the Fengyuan ferry. Don't be greedy for ink." Millet grains held the purse in both hands and called back to him, "Hey, it's really heavy." The little girl straightened her waist and said, "Take Ling." She frowned suddenly and glanced at Mr. Zhang, who was generous in his hands. The little girl scratched her face, but she didn't say anything. She is poor now. She has accumulated bits and pieces of her private money, and she can't make up a single Gu Yuqian. If there is a mistake, and there is a shortage of Gu Yuqian in her purse, wouldn't it be worth noting that she sold herself? Get debts. Zhang Ji smiled and said, "It's just 700, no more, no less, just don't worry, Master Xiao Xian." Seeing through the thoughts of the millet grains with a shy smile, Master Zhang Daxian is really considerate and good. Chen Pingan touched the head of the millet grain and smiled at Zhang Ji. Zhang Zhixiao asked, "Mr. Chen, Sect Master Cui, can you take the liberty to ask, what is the approximate amount of the first immortal money in Tong Yezhe's excavation of this blasphemy?" Cui Dongshan tooted, "It's really not a general presumption. They are all old foxes. If Zhang Ji knows the amount of this Gu Yuqian, the scale of the future Dadu can actually be roughly estimated. One accidentally, with the careful calculation of Baozhai, you can even completely bypass the forces of Qingping Jianzong, arrange early, carefully study a picture of the geomancy of Tonggishao and the landscape situation of various countries, and then enter the sea in 2 directions. With Mui and Peijiang as the starting point for the deduction, Baozhai has certainty to figure out the trend of a large river, and then secretly with those dynasty emperors and vassal monarchs who have long been destitute, by those who are temporarily worthless at a low price. For hilltops and sites, land leases can be handed over quickly, and you can wait for Dadu to find your door. Wealth will be rolling in, and we will be able to secure harvests due to droughts and floods. So Chen Pingan shook his head bluntly and said, "Excuse me." Zhang Ji said, "Beikizai really hopes to dig through the blasphemy, seeking both profit and fame, and seeking more fame, you can earn less money, or even no money at all. We will not and should not avoid King Pingjian. Zong Zili Stove, make the same mistake again, the gain is not worth the loss." Cui Dongshan folded his arms around his chest, "Your Baozhai's reputation in the Haoran world is really average. It's a few dozen blocks away. Just imagine that after 100 years or 1,000 years, every time you pass by Tongisao, the children of Baozhai, regardless of whether you are working hard to make money or wandering around the mountains and rivers, you only need to look at the place that rushes to the sea and never returns. Whether you are crossing the river by boat, standing on the shore, or on the Xianjia ferry in the sky, overlooking the winding water dragon that traverses Tongisao, you can have a clear conscience and laugh with friends. To learn from the old ancestor Wu to brag like this big blasphemy, we have a burden. Chen Pingon smiled and said, people pass by and leave their names, but geese pass by. Regardless of one mind, those who only seek to prove the immortality of the Tao, then those with high swordsmanship, hard-fisted, powerful, and rich in their pockets must leave something to the world. Wu Shou sighed. You two sang the double song here. As a result, Wu Shou saw the young man in white with a mole on his eyebrows and stared at himself. Wu Shou's body was tight for an instant, and his heart was constantly complaining. Fortunately, Zhang Ji helped solve the siege, continued the previous topic, and nodded with a smile. This kind of business that has been used for the generations of the common people really cannot simply pursue profit on the book. Zhang Ji then laughed and said, it's true that I only brought Wu Shou here to run into the wall this time because the Taoist couple who is in charge of Tongisao Baozhai, plus the ancestor of Baozhai who was born is in charge of the account books. In the account room, the three of them all have too much admiration for the hermit. They are different from Wu Shou who only recognizes money, so that I am worried that they will come here and will not bargain at all. It's too much to treat business as a business. Chen Pingon smiled and said, even if you have heard such kind words in the business field, you don't need to take it seriously. Zhang Ji reiterated the old story, then count us as one. 6,000 Guyu Qian, Tongisao bureaus I accounted for half, and I will pay out of my own pocket to make up the other half. Cui Dongshan asked, who asks whom? Zhang Ji smiled and said, of course I beg you. Cui Dongshan turned his head and looked at the general direction. Of course, he had to make up his mind. Chen Pingon nodded and said, Mr. Zhang can make a request. Dongshan, before that, you can tell Mr. Zhang the general situation. Cui Dongshan only then began to show some sincerity, and explained to Bao Zhai the funding situation of the first immortal money. Qingping Jianzong gave 3,000 Guyu money, Yu Guizong gave 5,000, the Kuanyao family, Hui, and Qingping Jianzong and Yu Guizong each borrowed 1,000 Guyu Qian, while Aizhou Lu clan and Xuanmi dynasty Yu clan each took out 10,000 and 2,000 Guyu Qian. It will soon be accounted for, and this is only the initial investment in the first phase. Want to excavate a brand new dadu? The project is vast, involving all aspects, only to restore the country along the dadu, or to establish a new orthodox new and old courts. Take this opportunity to use work instead of relief victims from the homeland, the need at every turn employing tens or millions of laborers. Countries can take the opportunity to clean up old mountains and rivers, and they can also gather refugees from all over the country. The imperial court and local governments can centrally manage them. I was hungry for thousands of miles in the first year, and the bones became wild. In addition, the Liu family of Iazhao promised to provide 300 rune boats of different sizes to help transport the people to the brand new Dadu riverbed. It is just the spiritual energy consumption of these Liu's private ferry boats, and a series of manpower dispatches in charge of the ferry master of the rune boat. The money spent by the gods on the ferry going to and from all over the place is all taken care of by the countries along the way. Responsible. After Zhang Ji heard it, he knew it in his heart. As soon as he wanted to speak, Cui Dongshan emphasized his tone and reminded him, Zhang Ji, you have to know that Liu and you have given out so much money, and they have been operating improperly and losing money. If you lose money, you will lose money. There is no complaint, but there is no evidence of any debt. Even if you can make money in the future, no matter how profitable in the future, Liu Jubao and Yu Panshui have already promised, they are all signed contracts. The two families earn at most 10% of the principal, and if they make this immortal money, Tong Yesh's blasphemy means that they have no relationship with them. As for the specific benefits of Dadu, it must be Zhang Ji and Bao Zhai who are most interested in where they came from, but I'm sorry, you have to see the real money before you are qualified to know about it, otherwise you will guess. Zhang Ji said, we can also learn from Lu Kaixin and Yu Panshui in terms of money, and earn up to 10% of the principal of the account. All the Xianjia ferry crossings along the way, regardless of whether the ferry is old or new, will be built with baggage houses. The imperial courts of various countries do not collect land rent. They are all bought by baggage houses with money. They are more refreshing, no wrangling and waste of energy. Unless the local dynasty changes and the country changes. The surname, when the time comes, it will be another attribution, otherwise the sale will be a price. As for the specific price of each new baggage at the ferry, I will let Wu Shou and the others talk about it, and it will also be considered as an additional benefit to the courts of various countries. The monarch and the yamen of the household department felt stretched when they talked about money, and easily delayed the progress of the Dadu excavation project. Cui Dongshan couldn't help laughing, good fellow, this is an obvious land grab. Zhang Ji explained with a smile, the popularity of Xianjia ferry is still very different whether there is a baggage fast or not. Wu Shou finally felt that he had the opportunity to make up for it. He just wanted to take the initiative and wanted to sell his personal affection. He said that in King Shandu, I can take the lead in paying for it. The manpower, material resources and financial resources are all provided by our Tongis Hao Bao Zhai. Bao Yuan a variety of buildings that Xianjia ferry should have. Zhang Ji immediately turned his head, put his fingers together and gently tapped the tabletop. Wu Shou, honestly, drink your tea. The rare anger patriarch is so angry that I really want to slap you to death. If it is selfish, why should Qingping Jianzong consume so much incense from the mountain, as the initiator of the blasphemy, fill this bottomless hole like a hole? If you Wu Shou open the mouth to give the suggestion in your heart, it is tantamount to telling the mountains and rivers, no, you Qingping Jianzong, in fact, are selfish. Cui Dongshan grinned and said, Mr. Zhang shouldn't demand that all his subordinates have a broad vision and a big picture like you, otherwise Bao Zhai would have replaced the merchants long ago, and become an ancestor by himself, or be blinded by Mr. Fan. Yes, please go to be the third ancestor of the merchant. Zhang Ji helplessly smiled, such words can't be spread. Indeed, as Cui Dongshan said, in a school, it is impossible to be alone in acting styles and methods of making money. Chen Pingan stood up, smiled and said goodbye with a fist. Since the direction is agreed, the next step is to grind the details, so let Dongshan talk to Mr. Zhang in detail. You should be noisy or scolded. You don't have to be polite. It will be better. Zhang Ji stood up and held his fists to send off. Chen Pingan smiled at that Wu Shou. Today we two really knew each other. Don't brag about drinking together with outsiders in the future. It's true to drink tea together anyway. Wu Shou's little chicken pecked at the rice, vowing to promise, no, the teachings of the hermit, remember it in my heart. Then Chen Pingan left King Shandu with the millet grains and Mi Dajiangxian and returned to Mishue Peak on foot. Zhou Mili asked, Good man Mountain Lord, do you go home together? Chen Pingan smiled and nodded, it's half the way. When the Fengyuan ferry arrives at Old Dragon City, I will accompany Senior Song to disembark for a while, and then I will rush back to Luopa Mountain alone. I will definitely arrive home earlier than you. Zhou Mili nodded, it's good to dare to love. It's rare that a good mountain owner waits for him to return home, instead of waiting for a good mountain owner to return home. Happy thief is happy, happier than receiving red envelopes during the new year. Miyuv glanced back at Wu Shou, and asked, Hidden officer, really forget it? Chen Pingan rubbed the head of the millet grains. Would you like to beat him to get out of his breath? Xiaomili grinned and said, don't be angry, you want to be atmospheric when you walk in the rivers and lakes. Chen Pingan put his hands away and nodded with a smile. Mi Dajian, did you hear me? Learn something. Miyu wanted to rub the head of the millet grains, but the little girl stretched out her palm and dragged Miye's wrist, and said anxiously, Yumi, mania, it's really true to touch her head again. Don't grow up. Miyu hesitated for a moment, and asked in his heart, my lord hermit, haven't you always admired that Pao Zhai patriarch? Don't take this opportunity to talk a few more words. Chen Pingan smiled and said, admiration is true, but as Mr. Zhang himself said, it's easy to lose your sense of measure when you work in partnership with people you admire. Furthermore, I look at the broad-hearted and fat old ancestor Wu. It's annoying. Over the table, Cui Dongshan began to complain to Zhang directly. It turned out that in order to excavate the Dadu incident, a temporary existence similar to the Patriarch's Hall was formed. His own Qingping Jianzong will send Zhongqiu and Miyu here. It cannot be said that this matter is ignored. Yuguizong came forward by Wang Ji, and the Dequan dynasty. Li Shiling, the official book of the Ministry of Etiquette, plus a household servant who left the capital specifically for this matter, can be regarded as a rare opportunity for officialdom to be gilded. Xue Huai of Yunkatang in Pushan and Taiping Mountain are enshrined in Negative Mountain. The Lu family of Iazhao and the Yu family of Zhongtu will also send one person to Tonggishao. It is most likely the Lu Yuzhou who has bad intentions and then was sacked, and the Yui Fu who is old friends with the hermit and Pei Qian. In addition, the countries along the Dadu in the future can also arrange their own personnel to participate in the discussions, and they can have a place in this pastor hall. Just talking about Qingping Jianzong, in addition to the talisman who will use Cui Dongshan, there are also puppets including Jinshi, Moyuer and Taishanging. Zhongqiu served as the accountant, the chief worshipper Miyu personally led the team, and Tao Rantao Dejiangxian was responsible for defending the road. Higu, Yu Xian returned. Coupled with the old Qiu Du, he even dug Yuaning realm Shuijiao Hongxia and Yunzi from the Luopa mountain. Of course, there are also three big figures who are most able to move mountains and seas as easy as turning palms. Cui Dongshan has not revealed the secrets of Bao Zhai for the time being. The king of Donghai Sea, Wang Zhu. The old throne big demon Yang Ji, and the barren Tao pavilion with half of the mountain refining art, today's Nen Taoist. Everything is ready. The person who added tea was replaced by girl vinegar. Cui Dongshan drank the last bowl of tea and sighed, Zhang Ji, I really didn't say you, my husband originally admired you very much, you said you were trying something, now it's okay. Almost turned your face thanks to my painstaking remedial work. Today's meeting was considered a good start and a good end, and a good start. Zhang Ji laughed at himself, it is better to be famous than to meet. Cui Dongshan sighed, anything in the world through the ages, it is always accidental but not accidental. Born from worry, accomplishing business, losing pride, gaining truth, returning to indifference, staying in memory, dying and forgetting, living in. Zhang Ji, am out of words, you come to make up. Zhang Ji shook his head and said in his own heart, Zhang is a talented person who is not very knowledgeable. It is better to embroider a tiger with insight, and of course he dare not continue. Cui Dongshan wondered, have you seen me? Zhang Ji was even more puzzled. What kind of problem is this? In Aquarius back then, didn't you sign up for your own registration number, and then you asked me to get out? Cui Dongshan nodded, that's one of the essence of my husband's learning, so I accidentally remembered something wrong. Until Zhang Ji left King Shandu that day, Pang Chao, a wooden guest from Luoyang on Mishue Peak, did not show up, reminiscing with this junior in the mountain. Fengyuan ferry began to sail south, Chen Pingan and Xiaomili both boarded the ship, Mi Yu accompanied. After this trip, Mi de Jianxian needs to devote himself to the excavation of Dadu. In the study of Mi Xiafeng's mansion, after saying goodbye to her husband and Xiaomili, Cui Dongshan returned to this place and sat on a chair with Cui Wei standing beside him. On the wall, there is a piece of rice paper hung in the ancient seal script, Qingping Jianzong, and below it is written some famous wooden plaques and marginal notes, which are divided into different realms. At the highest point, write the 3 characters, 14 realms, and leave it blank. Ascension realm is still temporarily vacant. In the column of immortals, there is Cui Dongshan, half-sword repair. Mi Yu, Jian Xiu. Below Yupu, there are Chai Wu, Ban Jian Xiu, and there is still a line of small letters on rice paper, at most 10 years, strive for 5 years. Yuaning, Cui Wei, Jian Xiu. On the right of Sui, Jian Xiu. Qiu Du, Old Qiu. Jin Dan, with Chao Sunny, half-sword repair. Tao Ran, Jian Xiu, a side note, he needs to make up his sword. Wu Hook, ghost repair. Xiao Menying, ghost repair. Cui Dongshan asked, Cui Wei, do you know the market for the Haoran sect? Cui Wei nodded and said, clear. Cui Dongshan said, so you, as the master of our Qingping sword sect, must be in the Yupu realm earlier than Sui right side. It is her business that Sui right side does not fight for this, and she has the right not to be anxious to break Yuaning. Environmental bottleneck, but this is not a reason for you not to hurry up. Cui Wei said, Mr. Xiaomao taught in the Luobaiden dojo. I have consulted on kendo many times, and he suddenly became clear and benefited a lot. Within 3 years, Yupu will definitely be there. Cui Dongshan hummed, you said it yourself. After 3 years, nothing will happen, so don't blame me for turning my face. In the vast world, whether it is qualified to be called the top sect, there is a threshold, which is whether there is a great monk in the Ascension realm at the moment. First-class sects, nowadays, whether there are immortals, are the golden signs. Among them, the ancestors who have been in the Ascended realm are naturally superior, and the sect has 2 or more immortals, and looks down on only 1. The second-rate sect may not have the fairyland for the time being, but it has a number of jade princesses, or that there is a jade princess master who has been in seclusion for many years and is expected to be an immortal. Among the lowest third-rate sects among the immortal palaces of the Zongzitu sect, there is only 1 Yupu realm, and there are even some sect fairy palaces that are not connected with each other. There is no ancestor or suzerain of the Yupu realm monk. Of course, the Zong prefix is the Zong prefix. Not everyone can take it seriously. In the eyes of ordinary genealogical monks in Yamazawa Yi Shou, it is still an unattainable behemoth. Cui Dongshan smiled and asked, Cui de Zanglu, do you know why I chose this place as the foundation of Qingping sword sect? Cui Wei shook his head and said, I don't know. Cui Dongshan leaned on the chair and twisted his wrists. One of them is to find a hidden expert. He doesn't like fighting the least in his life, but he can do it very well. Back then, he found Fei Fei's retreat route. But this one San Xian, whose whereabouts are uncertain, is still proficient in sword making, but he is not from the Haoran family, but from the Qingming world. Since he is a friend of the enemy, he is a friend. Cui Wei asked, name, Dao number. What is the realm? Cui Dongshan said, you don't need to know this, you just need to know that there is such a number 1 person. Sooner or later you can meet Mrs. Su, the leading swordsman in the Qingming world. He is not a woman, but Mrs. Su. The clouds and water are long, and I share sorrows with the monarch. Huaxia is a real human surname Su, only dreams of idlers but not dreams of monarchs, and all the way to Yuhang. I say that I am addicted to alcohol and I am innocent, and I am innocent. This person who can be called a cultivator from outside the world doesn't matter if he appears or not for the time being. Anyway, he needs to borrow the east wind from my Xiande mountain. Sword of Coming Chapter 973. A wind kite ferry, traveling south to Tongisao. Stopped midway at Taedu outside Mirage City. Song Yushao is still dressed in a blue shirt, long coat and cloth shoes, alone, boarding the ferry. According to the agreement with the Daquan dynasty, the ferry will help transport a batch of materials to Yuguazang by Chengdu and Kashandu, which is located on the southernmost side of Izhou. Sold in 2 places. I didn't see Han Guanghu and Jian Ming accompanied. Miyu looked playful. Zhou Mili was hung on the railing and kicked lightly. It was a pity. I still couldn't see that Pei Qian said that he looked as beautiful as a flower when he was a child. Like His Majesty the Emperor Daquan. At that time, Pei Qian was quite eloquent, saying that Shu Ling's sister named Yao Jinji. She looked at Master's eyes. Haha, there are so many dramas. When all the goods were loaded on the ferry, Feng Yuan continued to travel south. Chen Pingan accompanied Senior Song for a few drinks. Song Yushao said that Lord Fu Yin had been so busy recently that he couldn't get out of it, because Master Han was willing to take the initiative to serve as Dequangguo. The matter of the division can be described as shaking up and down the whole country. Drinking wine, Song Yushao talked about some things about the Daquan temple in Mirage City, and said, excavating a big blasphemy is too big and needs to be justified. There is something that is destined to be inevitable. How do you think about it? Talk to those colleges. It is necessary to obtain permission from the Central Tu Confucian Temple and the views of the 3 academies located in Tongisao. It is necessary to first connect with the academies and ventilate them so as not to branch out. Chen Pingan nodded and said, on the side of the Confucian Temple, my husband will help to finalize it. As for the 3 academies on the side of Tongisao, Tianmu, Dafu, and Wuxi, I will take the wind kite ferry this time and return to the north. I will leave the ferry and visit the past one by one. The Dafu Academy in the central part has the best grasp. I and Shan Chongqing Longzhou are old acquaintances. The Lord Zhou of Wuxi Academy is not a big problem. I am still friends with the Deputy Mountain Chief Wang Zai. Wang Zai can definitely help mediate. The biggest problem is the Tianmu Academy. Fan Shan grew up in the sub-sage line, and he is rigorous in his studies and prudent, which means he is relatively conservative in his work. The gentleman of the mountain leader Wen Yu, this man is extremely talented and more courageous. Not long after he arrived in the academy, he directly put on a posture. Wen Yu, he is in charge anyway. Song Yushao laughed and said, even I have heard of this gentleman. One can imagine how famous Wen Yu is. Wen Yu is not a native of Tongisao. He once had full power in the battle in the South Suozhou battlefield. As a result, Wen Yu was killed alive and killed a fairy clan who was in charge of a certain military tent. Chen Pingan said seriously, no matter how famous Wen Shanchang is, he is still slightly inferior to me. Originally, he left with Xiao Mo. If he hadn't gone back to his hometown this time, Chen Pingan planned to hand over these matters related to the academy to the teacher. Scholars chat well with scholars. Song Yushao Rinjun couldn't help but said, what's the point of bragging with me? Your kid has the ability to meet each other, and talk to the Long Wen Shanchang face to face. Chen Pingan raised the wine bowl and said with a smile, I'm not lacking in roots. I'm so stupid. It's too old-fashioned to meet and slap people in the face. Izhou Santriyuan, Dafu, Tianmu, Wuxi. Tongisao is one continent north and south, the 2 old largest sects, now the thriving Yuguazang and the half-dead Tongizong. If you add a Qingping Jianzong, it is estimated that for the 3 colleges, it is just 1. That's right. Since it is said that everything is difficult at the beginning, the Wuxi Academy in the south, with Zhou Mi and Wang Zayasheng and a pair of mountain leaders, must have a good beginning. Song Yushao hesitated to speak, and then laughed to himself and started drinking. There is a lot of gossip in that mirage city. According to some gossips that have noses and eyes, it seems that even Master Han's role as a national teacher has become a means to cover up. There is also the Taoye Ferry in the Jingqing city of Beijing. Most of the words are conclusive. It must be the result of someone's strong recommendation. Otherwise, how could Master Han come to Mirage City? From this point of view, the young hidden official had to miss our Daquan dynasty so much that he was willing to make such a roundabout contribution to the Yao family. Chen Pingan wondered, Senior Song, what anecdotes have been heard in Mirage City before, and what miracles have been seen, so happy? Song Yu said with a smile, it's not a strange anecdote. It's just some hearsay about the love of the children, and I don't know the true or false. Anyway, I'm in the Yao mansion, a martial artist who is not a golden figure. Receiving a lot of courtesy. Chen Pingan smiled bitterly, drink and drink. In the Daquan dynasty, the water temple buried by the river, the incense flourishes, and the people who worship incense are in an endless stream. In front of the monument for praying for rain, stood a woman in a Jingchai sarong with a graceful appearance, with a fan of a PU fan around her waist. At the woman's feet, there was a girl-like hippo girl squatting, and she didn't think the inscription was anything to look at. This pair of out-of-town tourists who have just become mentors and apprentices traveled across the continents of Tonghizhou and Guangzhou from Zhong to Shenzhou. Now Chao Qiu is the official disciple of Yangji. Uphold the current identity of the landscape genealogy, pseudonym Jingxing, road name, High Mountain, is the famous guest of the Xiangtou Mountain Shrine in a small country in Zhongtu Shenzhou. As for the high-ranking robe, it was put on the disciple Ganzhou and used to temper his golden body. This is a once-in-lifetime practice. One thing is destined to be like a broken bamboo. After all, this is one of the top 10 robes in the world. Yang Ji asked softly, do you still feel staggered when you wear it on your body? The girl looked up and smiled, Master, it's much better. He stopped and nodded and said, when you feel that you don't feel sluggish while walking, you're done. Ganzhou joked, Master, I will pay you back then, don't refuse it. Yang Ji smiled and said, I didn't even think about sending you off, don't be affectionate. Ganzhou laughed and said, I thought Master would give me away. I declined 1 or 2 or 3 times, and finally returned to Master. The friendship between Master and apprentice has grown stronger. Yang Ji smiled and picked up a living treasure to be a disciple. This long journey is not boring. Ganzhou squatted on the ground, pulled the collar of his robe, and asked, Master, this piece of clothing is always valuable, right? The robes of the Taoist monks, worn on the gods of mountains and rivers, are actually equivalent to tempering the golden body. It is indeed unheard of. However, Ganzhou feels that he has really little insight. Or the sedan chair. He stopped and nodded, it's really rare to see a robe of the same rank. In the ancient years 10,000 years ago, the big demon who had always appeared as a young man in the past only occupied 2 pieces. After he and Bai Jing and other big demon disappeared, these 2 mountain treasures were scattered in 2 sects in the wild world. Inwardly, Yang Ji is not to be greedy, I really dare not act rashly. In addition, the feather garment that Taoist ancestor gave to Yu Dou, and that of Yao Qing, the elegant minister of Qing Shan dynasty, also has a similar rank. Yuzhou Daifishan Huayang Palace, and Gaogu with the name Juyue has another one. For the Haoran world, Fu Lu Yuxuan's purple energy, coupled with the Dao vein of Zhao Tianlai, the contemporary celestial master of Longhushan, so the saying, the world's first-class robes, Dao men account for half. Yang Ji planned to take a trip to the Daquan buried river, and then to the Linha River and the Peijiang River near Pushen. The buried river and the Peijiang River meandering into the sea, but like the backbone of an air trainer, limited by nature, if there is no human intervention, there is absolutely no qualification. One only has the qualifications of the middle 5 realms. The cultivating embryo of Taoism wants to be among the 5 realms, and can only make up for it with a lot of good luck. Yang Ji suddenly turned his head and looked to the north side of the sky. The 2 places at the source and the end of the Peijiang River were dedicated to the Donghai women and Qinghong Lord, but they belonged to the Yin temple that was not approved by the local court. Coupled with the avenue of Ko Zuanka's origin, you can improve your cultivation level by walking through the water. And the most interesting thing is that there are 2 statues of gods in the temples of the water gods in the 2 places. It's just this kind of inside story that involves privacy. Lu Ro is very curious, and it's not easy to ask face to face in the middle of winter. Therefore, Lu Ro held back for a long time before she asked a question of her own decency. The Qinghong Jun, whose temple is located at the estuary of Peijiang, didn't he come together? Ko Xuanziu shook his head and smiled. No. It is not easy for the water to leave the jurisdiction, not to mention that Qinghong Jun is not an orthodox water god. Lu Ro let out a cry. According to the records and exaggeration of those Shiguai Yuming novels, she said that the East Sea woman, who could not return home, was actually from the East Sea Dragon Girl. Lu Ro was the of water. Today I saw Ko Xuanziu for the first time. I can see that this kind of statement is nonsense. Vegetarian. Lu Ro surreptitiously took out a book, coughed, and put it on the table in a pretended manner. The goddess buried in the river water was very deliberate, and finally used the most crappy reason, saying, Xiaoziu, the head of the book, it's like telling nonsense and telling stories, right? Ko Xuanziu glanced at the title of the book, understood in his heart, and smiled. It is half true and half false. I have also read this book. The book says I am a dragon girl in a dragon palace in the East Sea. Miss Qian Jin often took a personal maid, traveled inland through the Peijiang by boat, and asked the scholars to help copy the scriptures and poems. In fact, it is not a random fabrication, because there are indeed such things, but the lady deliberately let I pretend to be her, and then she will pretend to be a maid. Lu Rao's expression was bright, her eyes gleamed, then she really attracted the coveted beauty of a Wuyue mountain monarch, and ordered her subordinate Ai to knock Qinghong Jun over the building and block the way. As a result, she missed and collided with you. I went back by force, and Jinwu hides the Jiao. At the source of the Peijiang River, I will build a private house for you in the water mansion. Whenever you are homesick, you will cry like rain and flood the Peijiang River. If this is the case, this mountain you can't do things honestly. If it's true, don't worry. I will ask a little master for you when I turn back. This little master is great. If he takes the initiative to uphold justice, you will surely be free. Body. Ah. Isn't it so twists and turns? Is it another kind of saying that the fairy teacher on the Tonggishao mountain said? It's your lady who is secretly married to the Qinghong Jun who has long looked at each other in order to escape the marriage, the mountain king. Well, it's the beauty of intending to be an adult, and being a month old. So you are just a blindfold. You can be regarded as an elopement for your own lady, avoiding people's eyes. That said, it is indeed lingering, song and tear. Ko Xuanziu looked helpless and undecided. She really didn't want to deceive the of buried river water, so she had to choose some content that didn't hurt. In this story, whether it's with Qinghong Jun or with the kind-hearted man Shan Jun, has never been involved in the love of men and women. Lu Ro was greatly disappointed. She put away the book on the table in an anguish, and complained softly, "Students are not kind, especially those who write books. There is a way to deceive people." Ko Xian Chu Yen smiled. Lu Ro laughed and said, if you don't talk too speculatively, there will be less than 1,000 glasses of wine every confidant. We will drink one of them. I will do whatever you want, it's tea, the same. A confluence of land and sea near a buried river. A group of people walked to the shore and appeared, and the leader was the king of Donghai Sea, the true dragon King Zhu. With a group of followers, the 4 Shuefu followers, Li Ba, Huang Man, Gong Yan, and Shi Man. They followed the king of water Zhu and took another trip to the darts. It is rare to take a leisurely trip. This time they landed, they were to follow Wang Zhu to a new Shansha dynasty named Shenlong to stroll around. The identities of a few of them are not simple. It is really rare to get together and become colleagues. Jade Taoist Wang Man is a ghost repairer in the fairyland. He is good at calling the wind and the rain literally, but he has grievances with Zhang Taoxia, the first person in martial arts in the past. Li Ba, the master of the Taoist name, is an old monk from Jinjiasu. He was an irreversible friendship with that Wanyan Lao Jing. A national teacher whose dynasty has been destroyed, once held the Qingzhang Taoist Academy. His status are a bit similar to that of Luzhou in Beiju. Young Qing Yan, the national teacher of the Chongxian department of the Diyuan dynasty. Shiman, Wufu of the 9 realms. Born in Lixiazu, a genus of terrestrial dragons, it is expected to be in the end. Beautiful woman, real name Gong Yan, nickname Oo. A native monk in Fuyao, the Zongmen suffered heavy casualties in that battle. The Zushitang and Shantao were lost. Gong Yan did not have the heart and ability to be the ancestor of Zte. She was good at making money. Besides, she served as the lord of a sect, she has no such skills, so in these years, she has only secretly helped the aspiring juniors of the sect several times. At most, she will have trouble, and then say hello to the Water King Zhu to see if she can move out of the Donghai mansion. Signboard to help tide over the difficulties. Gong Yan has been in contact with the female sword repairer named Nalan for many years. The other party claimed to be from the palace of the upside-down landscape Jing. It is said that she has now taken advantage of the situation as the new lord of the Yulong sect. The weak female cultivator of Yupu realm was transferred to be the master of law. The new sect master of Yulongzong, who is a sword repairer, once earned a lot of fairy money in partnership with Gong Yan in Shanshui Grottos, so he missed his old feelings and recently invited Gong Yan to go there as the chief consecration, or as a no-brainer. The chief guest secretary who is not in charge of money is also successful. Gong Yan also didn't directly reject the other party's kindness, but temporarily used a drag tactic. Wang Zhu said, in addition to going to the Yu dynasty who changed the reign, I will also meet someone. You don't have to wait or look for it. The other party will find it by themselves. Gong Yan said with a charming smile, as long as you don't be the famous young hidden official, you can talk to anyone when you see it. Except for Chen Ping'an, they are not shocked to see anyone. What about the ordinary Ascension realm? Isn't the Donghai monarch beside him also in the Ascension realm? Who dares to say something serious? Speaking of this, Gong Yan carefully glanced at Wang Zhu's face. Hearing the name of the hidden official, Wang Zhu didn't have the slightest expression on her face, and she turned a deaf ear. Gong Yan turned her head and looked at a poor little guy. At the end of the team, a young man named Wang Qiongju was followed by her, who was responsible for carrying handheld parcels on his shoulders. The young man's forehead slightly bulged, and it was not a few years since he succeeded in refining his shape, mainly because he was still hungry, and he had never eaten enough. I have been with Wang Zhu for so many years. After he has cultivated Xiaocheng, he barely had a personal appearance, so he was given the surname Wang, the name Qiongju, the word Yusha, and the Taoist name, Han Su. It was the four-legged snake in Ni Ping Alley that was often thrown next door by Song Jisin, ran back to his home, and was trampled on toes by Jigue. At this moment, Wang Qiongju was carrying a greasy purple gourd obliquely behind his back. It was an ancient relic that was picked up by the owner from the sea. The ancient seal, catch and release. Perceiving Gong Yan's sight, the boy smiled shyly. Gong Yan became more and more curious about the palm-sized town, and if she had the opportunity in the future, she really wanted to visit it in person. According to the agreement with Wang Zhu, when Howren's water god's darts were completely over, they would be able to resolve their contracts with the water mansion. They would leave or stay, and Wang Zhu would be free. It is true that this guy and Miyu had a relationship before meeting, because they are both ruthless people. Chen Pingon smiled and replied, when you pulled you up this time to find the door together. First, there was the Northern Xylonkyu incident, and then he suggested to dig a blasphemy without authorization. He planned to punish both crimes. It's just that the Tianmu Academy is afraid of me. Lift the table, Qingping Jianzong and Tianmu Academy fall out, Fan Shanchong will let you out of the mountain, so that you can be a peacemaker. Wang Xi smiled and said, Wen Yu is too underestimated. In fact, before Wen Yu came to Tonggishao, he had the idea of relieving refugees and gathering the hearts of Tonggishao by excavating a blasphemy. This is not a hero. Slightly the same. Chen Pingon had a small accident. In that case, there is no need to hide and tuck them, they are all their own. Chen Pingon simply asked the two deputy mountain leaders to lift the wine bowl from the table, draw out a scroll from their sleeves, and spread the mountain and river scroll on the table. The scroll was extremely long, and the two ends almost touched the window and door of a room. Chen Pingon used a little trick, such as a pillared house, to prop up the scroll that was placed in the air, and then put the wine bowl on his hand. In the sky, like a white fish floating in the water, Chen Pingon didn't say anything nonsense, and directly began to explain the idea of this Dadu route in detail, stretched out his finger, and slowly outlined a green Dadu river in the picture scroll. In a certain country, where needs to be changed, where needs to dig a riverbed, where need to move mountains and relocate, which cities may become underwater cities, subsidize the people, and roughly divide it into the hands of every citizen how to calculate the money, how the local government offices and the household departments of the imperial courts of various countries filed with the Qingping Jianzong and Yugui Zone, how the latter went to investigate the matter, and what if an official dared to fill his own pockets? Disposal. When Chen Pingon talked about the official's disposal plan, when Yu finally spoke, the punishment is lighter and he is directly demoted to a base. The descendants of the third generation are not allowed to participate in the imperial examination. In the hometown of these officials, the imperial court orders the local government to directly establish the stele is a warning to warn future generations that they dare to be greedy in this matter, even if there is only 1 or 2 silver, this is the end, there is no discussion, which royal household official dare to cover this matter, and lose the official position. If you set up a monument to your hometown, I want to see how they return home. Which emperor couldn't bear to let the imperial court lose his country's pillars? So when you personally went to him to make sense. These two get together, always feel that he, the deputy head of Wuxi Academy, should be trembling, maybe one day he will go to Gongdaland to accompany Wen Yu to study together. Chen Pingon continued, first of all, Qingping Jianzong, Taiping Mountain, and Pushen can each choose 3 to 5 vassals to go down the mountain as enclaves for long-term management. Of course, it is the kind of imperial courts of various countries that are temporarily unable to repair. Or the chicken rib site that opened up into a fairy mansion will not be a barren land of mountains and rivers, and it will not be a feng shui treasure that everyone rushes. Secondly, the construction of Xianjia ferry crossings, inns and shops along the way is also a long-term business with long flowing water. 3. All the treasures of heaven, material and earth, gold, silver, copper and iron during the excavation of Dadu. As long as they are undiscovered in various countries in history, they can negotiate with the local dynasty and vassal on matters concerning the division of accounts. In addition, for example, the diversion of rivers. During this period, the ruins of various ferry houses were discovered, as well as the broken secrets where traces were unintentionally found. There are also some similar excavations of the old sites of the Dragon Palace on the ground. As long as you are lucky, it is not completely impossible. The latter will not be negotiated with other countries. Finally, together with Dadu, all Xianjia ferry ports along the way need to give priority to our ferry docking, without any toll or rent, like a Tongyin ferry on the Qingshan ferry of Xiandu Mountain. It's in this row. But for the wind kite under our feet, all transcontinental ferries still need to pay a sum of ferry money with the holders of the ferry crossings according to the previous rules on the mountain. Together with Dadu, a complete commercial route was opened horizontally on Tongya Island, just like the Tongyin ferry at Qingshandu, which was suddenly useful. These are good things that are mutually beneficial and belong to long-term business. Presumably, the countries in central China cannot ask for it. When you drew out the bottom scroll and placed it on the top, sipped a sip of wine, lay down on the table, and asked, "But how do you divide the place for a great blasphemy, the extra mountain and water gods? I want to come near Pushan." The Peijiang River, the Donghai women and Qing Hongjun who have never been proclaimed, will definitely be able to join the ranks of the water gods promulgated in the academy. Then there is a blasphemy father, these 3 to 4 high water gods. You have the few leaders been divided up internally? Of course, on the surface they only have the power to recommend, but presumably the Temple of Confucius and the 3 academies will not make you too much trouble. As long as the candidates are right, maybe you will acquiesce. Chen Pingan smiled and said, "I have indeed discussed this matter, but Qingping Jianzong has voluntarily given up this recommendation right. Maybe the Dequan dynasty and Yuguizang will both be elected, but Dadagong and Ho are both elected. Everyone agrees on the position of God, no one recommends or nominates, otherwise it would be too ugly to eat, so I just try to ensure that 2 people I like can get the position of great blasphemy." Wang Zai was relieved. When Yu raised his head and asked curiously, "Why did Mr. Chen give up?" "It's not a fake public offering for personal gain, and there is nothing to taboo about when appointing a sage does not avoid relatives." Chen Pingan smiled and said, "There is no suitable candidate. The goddess of buried river water, Bio Gongliru, the Yao family of Dequan will definitely spare no effort to recommend her as the of Dadashuibo. Moreover, Lu Rou really shouldn't jump several ranks in the Shanshui officialdom, and directly promoted to the prince. Moreover, Chen Pingan even suspects that the Water Empress would refuse to serve as Dadashui Bo when you picked up the wine bowl and said sincerely, 'This is a worthwhile trip. I will leave after drinking this bowl of wine.' I can't guarantee more. Just talk about Yuguizong's side. If they make a moth in the future, Qingping Jianzong will only I need to send a letter from Feijin directly to Tianmu Academy. I will beat them. If the suzerain is Jiang Shangjin, I will be polite to them. Forget it now, Wei Ying just went to the barren world, and it's nothing for the time being. I don't need it. Sell their face." Having each served their bowls and drank, Wang Zai couldn't help but jokingly said, "What an arrogant and domineering master teaches himself." Chen Pingan smiled and said, "Brother Mingqi is still a scholar." When Yu shook his head and said, "In terms of merit, courage, and mind, I am far behind Qin Shanju." These are not polite words on the wine table, but the truth. Wang Zai knows this matter best. There is no way to say good things on the surface. After that, Chen Pingan accompanied the 2 deputy mountain captains to the bow of the ship. Wang Zai said, "Chen Pingan, we are currently planning to promote Shanxia Yizhuang." Chen Pingan's eyes lit up, and he immediately rushed to say, "But use that fan Yizhuang that has lasted for more than 800 years as a model." Wang Sai smiled and said, yes, but it needs to be more complete. There are more than 700 detailed rules. It is not an exaggeration to say that the bot must be compared. When you intend to do something good according to some people's heads. When you curiously asked, Mr. Chen also knows about this? Chen Pingan hesitated for a moment, took out a few thick booklets from his sleeve, and smiled. This is a real coincidence. I also have a general framework about this matter, but the detailed rules are not as good as you, only more than 500. The article, Mr. Wen Shan takes it, don't need to return it, and see if he can help check the omissions. When Yu took the booklet with both hands, and after stopping at the bow of the boat, he said, farewell to Mr. Chen. Chen Pingan had to make a courtesy, straightened up and said, Chong Wen, let me say a digression. Whether you are a schoolmaster or a master at academy, you can't separate it out, otherwise it doesn't matter if there is no way in the world. It's not a real piece. When you laughed and said, as it should be, you and I coincide again. Wang Sai clasped his fists and smiled, Chen Pingan, next time you drink, you have to be the one who is not drunk. Chen Pingan joked, I know your drinking capacity, so I advise you not to say a few big words, so as not to repay your debts at the wine table next time, you will not be able to escape. The two young vice-chiefs of the academy left in this way. Below the ferry, the earth, mountains and rivers, green grass on the riverside, thinking about the long way. There are layers of peach and plum blossoms on the mountain, layer after layer, and the fireworks under the clouds are homes. The old mountains and rivers have a new atmosphere, year after year and new year, to have fun together, to celebrate and to be new. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.